Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
New Seas Ahead by Peacelight24. Nakama means you never have to say goodbye or be alone, in which Monkey D. Lucy, future Pirate King, and Roronoa Zoro, future world's greatest swordsman, are dumb and everyone else is long-suffering. Or, things with them are always do or die, and love is just the same. Nakama ship, pining, Zorox Fem Lucy. Adios.
After Pika tried to crush Zoro, again, only to realize it was kind of futile to do so, again, the guy escaped into the castle plateau and started making trouble for other people. Honestly, he's making Zoro look bad. His power is annoying though, and even though Zoro's got a handle on it now, he's not quite clear on how he's supposed to put it into use. It's not like he can cut the freaking mountain in half. Well, he could, but that carries a pretty big risk to their allies, and it's not guaranteed that Pika would retreat to the top half rather than the bottom. Not to mention Lucy and Torao, who are currently battling at the top of the castle. He can sense them, and Robin too. There's a coppery taste in his mouth that is not his own bloodlust, but Lucy's rising fury. Because of Pika's tactics, Zoro's been reduced to making himself more annoying to Pika than Pika's being to their side. This mostly involves cutting his face off of the mountainside a lot. Annoying as this is, it's giving him a chance to observe the people that followed them here. They're not half bad. They're not as strong as him or even, maybe, the Love Cook. But they're not weak by any stretch of the imagination. And hell, no one's going to beat a giant in an arm wrestling contest except, possibly, Lucy. Even that's a little doubtful though, because no matter how Lucy uses Gear 3rd, a giant's always going to have better leverage. He watches them for another reason too. They're allies now, but tomorrow the tides may change, and knowing about them in advance may save someone a limb. Or at least a trip to the infirmary. Honestly, even if these guys aren't quite on his or Lucy's tier for sheer firepower, they make up for it in frank, audacious will. Hell, if he's not mistaken, he's pretty sure the giant just broke every bone in his body to chuck the bowling ball guy into the birdcage. Take a rest, he assures the giant as the man fights his inevitable blackout. That cage will be down when you wake. Lucy'll take care of it. You'll see. It's a good thing Lucy and Usopp managed to get these guys on their side though. This whole endeavor would have been significantly more challenging if Zoro and Robin were left to deal with all these assholes by themselves. Not that they couldn't, in theory, it would be hard. Very hard. And while Zoro does love a challenge, there's a lot at stake this time around. Like a country. And his girlfriend. And the wrath of a Yonko, with another waiting in the wings because Lucy threw a temper tantrum at a greedy lady who takes candy too seriously. If the whole crew was here, it would be different. But they're not, so Lucy's bizarre ability to make loyal friends out of random strangers is convenient. She was the most formidable individual on the battlefield, he remembers. His mental version of Mihawk sips wine smugly, his point proven once again. Zoro mentally flips him the bird. 30 meters to his left, a spike of stone attempts to impale 20 men. Only one of them was an ally of Zoro's, and the guy managed to get away clean. Pika's attacking at random, which can only mean, Pika's a piece of shit. Attacking your own people? He demands, slicing Pika's face out of the rock. The guy appears just above his old position, undaunted. That's low. Screw you. Pika squeaks. The earth under Zoro's feet shakes and he leaps to the next piece of stable ground as it writhes into a spear behind him. Bring it on, shit brick. Pika pushes the entire section of the plateau Zoro's standing on off the main mountain. People scream around and below him, and Zoro just jumps across the falling rock to solid ground. He stares at Pika, curious, not even bothering to drop into an offensive stance, despite Kitetsu's howls. Wado rings in haughty disdain. Pika stares back, dark eyes roving in the stone. That wasn't even an attack, and Pika knows a fall isn't going to take Zoro out, that he'll just come back, so why? He's stalling. But what for? Above him a white cape flutters across the edge of the plateau, the glint of steel visible to sharp and knowing eyes. The annoying one? He wonders aloud. Except the guy seems different. His voice is the same, but it's not. Not at all. It's less human. More bloodthirsty. Huh. Lucy might have been right about Cabbage after all. He'd probably be a pretty interesting opponent like this. A large, round man in a cape, crown, and boxing gloves appears on Zoro's left. Want some help? He asks. Zoro vaguely recalls him from the frantic race across the island. I've got a pretty strong punch. I can only use it once an hour, but… Well, that's a weirdly expositional thing to say. Nah, he responds. I'll take care of him. And save your trump card for later, we might need it. The guy shrugs and turns away, moving on to the next group of people. Zoro glares up at Pika and hopes he saves his punch. After all, whatever Pika's stalling for has to be big. Something unexpected. Zoro takes out his frustrations on any sign of moving stone and settles into wait. Fighting Doflamingo is hard. He's good, and she and Torao aren't used to fighting together. They're managing, but really, their styles are very different and they need too much communication to coordinate easily. That isn't to say they're losing, exactly, just that it's a hard fight, and Doflamingo is the kind of guy who can take Red Hawk full force and get up 2 seconds later. At the moment, though, Lucy will concede that they may not be exactly winning. She's lying on her bleeding stomach, hog-tied with razor wire, and Torao was just stabbed through the chest with a bunch of Doflamingo's strings. They're both down, for the moment, and Doflamingo is twitching. It occurs to Lucy that he may be losing it. You kids. Even thinking you could beat me was a terrible insult. Beat me? Me? I am descended from the noblest bloodlines in the world. The celestial dragon. I am a god among you mortals, banned from heaven, and you thought you could beat me? What? Lucy breathes, her eyes locked on Doflamingo's writhing form. For so much of her life the title has inspired horror and disgust within her. There was the one who killed Sabo. Killed him in her childhood, even if he managed to live, and he remains nameless to her, a faceless, empty force of nature that took her brother away. She tried to forget about it. Tried to move on, but it's like Ace said, there's something opposed to freedom and she can't. There are many reasons to kill Doflamingo. The fact of his birth is not one of them. He's not that special. That's how you got around the trap, Torao pants, his breath coming in short supply. You're a fucking dragon. I was, Doflamingo corrects irritably. Until my worthless bastard of a father took us down from heaven, cast us into this shit stain of a world forever. A vein pops on his forehead, and his smile is manic and his aura violent. I took his head to the gates of Mary Joieuse. But the celestial dragons in heaven would never accept the blood of a family that rejected them. So I knew the only way out of this hell of a world would be to burn it down. Doflamingo cackles, his fingers twitching madly. Live like a human being. What a joke. Only the weak want such a thing. Kora-san was, Torao seems almost pained, his face pale from more than blood loss. My younger brother was a weakling, just like my father. Doflamingo snarls. The reminder of Torao's precious person seems to get to him more than just about anything else they've done. They didn't understand. They didn't get it. People are all cruel, no matter who they are or where they're born. He lunges for Lucy suddenly, and she tries to dodge, but then his voiceless double slams into her back, hard enough for her body to punch through the roof and into the floor below. Straw Hat yaw. Torao calls. The fake flits down, and Bellamy is dragged by his hair, still weeping and crying. Just hold on, Torao. I'll be right there, she replies. She can hear the faint whistle of Doflamingo's attacks. The metallic clink of Torao's sword ache laughs darkly. Will you? Lucy stands facing them, her hands still tied with unbreakable string behind her back. She has to get back up there. Torao isn't weak, but he's hurt and stands a better chance with a partner, especially since Doflamingo knows the ins and outs of his abilities. In a fight like this one, every second counts. I will. Fake Mingo rushes her, and Lucy dodges with care. Observation hockey works with him, but it's harder to deal with than a person with a voice. She can still hear the whistle of vibrating strings and the faint whir of the double's ever-spinning body, but it's difficult to pick out and there is no intention about it. He's just a doll, keeping her occupied while Doflamingo fights Torao. Bellamy, pleading endlessly for his own death, is still chasing after her, blades swinging wildly. Fighting the two of them splits her attention too much. especially since she's keeping a distant awareness of the battle above their heads and mind. Torao is angry, and there's something desolate about him too. Lucy feints, ducks, and rolls her way to a corner, away from her attackers, and pulls against her restraints so hard blood slips down her wrists. It does nothing though, the glowing strings she's bound with are like steel, and even using them to parry Bellamy's blades left no dent. She crouches a little, jumps backward through the loop of her arms to bring her wrists before her and coats her arms in armament hockey to break the ties. They're so tight it still burns through the metallic skin, but at least she has her arms back. Bellamy gets the first run at her, calling out as he moves unwillingly. Lucy wishes she could free him, but she can't, she can only dodge or knock him out, and the idea of hurting someone she calls a friend is unpalatable. Bellamy begs her to kill him anyway. You should just kill him, you know, fake, Mingo says conversationally. He's too pathetic to live. He's not the one who's pathetic, Lucy snarls in return, backflipping over Bellamy to deliver a kick to fake, Mingo's head. You just suck. Bellamy sobs wrenchingly, and Lucy ducks under his blades to swing a hockey-laden fist at Doflamingo. He blocks it with his strings, and she rolls out of the move as Bellamy comes for her again and again. Lucy runs for fake, Mingo, pressing knees to her chest as she shoots both feet at him in a stamp. She twists aside, not letting Bellamy anywhere close, and blocks out his apologies as she tries to focus on Torao. His voice is fainter than she would expect. Like he's above the rooftop, somehow. Him and Doflamingo both. I am a force of nature, girl, fake, Mingo cackles. Someone like you can't deter the likes of me from my goals. She growls, low and determined. I don't care what you want. Straw Hat duck. Lucy does. A blade catches in her side and she screams. Fake, Mingo chuckles darkly, humored. That wouldn't have happened if you just killed him. Lucy's not going to kill him. She's gonna murder Doflamingo though. She struggles up, limbs shaking, and feels the wet squelch of her blood as Zoro's shirt clings to her belly. The wound aches and stings, but it is not debilitating. Not when her rage is so deep. Then above her, there is Torao's fear. Torao's pain, agony. Oh God, her arm, not her arm. Torao. Torao just lost his jet Gatling, she bellows, and fake, Mingo does not have time to stop her, does not have time to respond as she wails on him, blasts him up to the ceiling and higher, higher, higher. He lands in a pile up above, smoke billows from the heat she generated, and she glares up at the hole, her fists clenched and instinctively black with hockey. Mingo, she screams. Get away from Torao. Silence. The voices above wait in shock. Torao seems dazed, confused, numb in a way that's worrying after an injury like that. Did you hear me, fucker? She screams again, I said. Soft steps from above. Heavy, but quiet. Lucy waits, and though blood roars in her ears as her rage smolders, she stands steady and firm. Pink feathers peek out over the rim. A shock of platinum hair and horned glasses. Mingo. Would you look at that? Doflamingo muses, whistling in awe. Bellamy. You're still alive then? I didn't expect it. Behind her, Bellamy whimpers. Let him go, Lucy demands darkly. Let him go now. Well, since you're not being merciful in executing him yourself. He snaps his fingers. Bellamy drops to the ground, and she turns to see him lying on his stomach, horror in his face and his body nothing more than a mottled bruise. There. You're free, Bellamy. Just as you always were. For some reason this causes the man's expression to contort in agony and shame. Lucy doesn't have time to dwell on it though, because above her, Doflamingo has turned away, and Torao's voice spikes with attention and wariness. Hey, she bellows, gearing up to launch herself to the top again. Mingo, get back here. She's ignored. Behind her, Bellamy struggles up, and she turns to him bewildered. Hey, sit down, you're gonna die if you move too much. Straw Hat, he coughs, and blood comes up. She leans down, wiping his face with the corner of Zoro's shirt. Look, just stay here. I gotta go help Torao. He's alone with Doflamingo and Snot. She looks up at the hole in the ceiling, and shifts to the balls of her feet to prepare for launch. Lucy's not prepared for it when it happens. She's not watching Bellamy, isn't paying much attention to him at all. So when he tackles her, more by sheer force of his weight than any sort of skill or speed, She grunts in surprise as he lands on her heavily. "Bellamy, what the hell?" she yells, and she pushes him off instinctively, her knees working with her hands to shake him loose. He falls to the ground beside her in a heap and moans in pain. There are tears streaming out of his eyes. "Straw Hat," he croaks, and Lucy moves to her knees and watches in disbelief as he tries to stand again. "I'm comin' for ya." "What?" she breathes in disbelief, and she stands as he does, her hands reaching out to catch him if needed. I made a vow to follow Doflamingo," he gasps. "He's been my hero since I was a kid. Surely you got one too?" Shanks, she realizes. Doflamingo is Bellamy's Shanks. He forces himself upright, and Lucy can hear a whistling that can only mean a rib is ruptured. "You're going to die if you move around like that," she pleads. "I admired the wrong person," he weeps, "I know that. But honor. My pride. I have to see it through to the end. To the very end." He raises his fists, and takes a lurching swipe at Lucy. She sways out of it easily. "I won't help you kill yourself," she warns. "Then just stand there and take it," he shouts, and he steps forward, quicker than she's expecting, and just misses her head when she ducks. The worst part is, she understands. She does, she really, really does. Bellamy is loyal above all else. And whatever he might have said on Jaya, his dream was clearly standing at Doflamingo's side. It says a lot about him, that he should have such a dream, that he would want to serve under someone so cruel. It says a lot more that he's grown past that he wants more, but doesn't yet know how to find it. She thinks of Gramps, torn between Ace and his own dream. She thinks of herself, deciding for him as she scraped her way to her brother. Above her, Torao's voice is waning fast, and she can feel his energy draining. Above her there's a monster she needs to lay to rest. Lucy makes another decision. If it was just her life and just Bellamy's at stake, she wouldn't do it. She would let him go until he exhausted himself, until he could no longer stand, and then take him down as gently as possible, to keep his pride intact and maybe save his life. She knows what pride is, what honor is. She knows those things are more important than one's own life. She knows what it is to have a dream, a treasure in the heart. She understands why Bellamy is rushing her even now. It's not just his life though. It's Torao's and Rebecca's and Flower Lady and Everett under Doflamingo's thumb. It's Lucis Nakama and the cage far above their heads. Choices, choices. There are always choices. "Bellamy," she whispers, and she ducks under another blow. "I'm sorry." And she punches him in the face as the sharp report of a gun echoes in her ears. As it turns out, something unexpected is a big and "fuck you too" from the giant stone face in the mountainside. "Oi, get back here, dumbass, we're not finished," he shouts, but Pika's already smoothing into the rock face, away from Zoro's reach. "Shit," he growls, frustrated. This fight is taking longer than it needs to. Pika's only advantages are his sheer size, the strength that offers him, and his ability to escape pretty much any attack. He's slow though, agonizingly so, even with his smaller, more precise movements. And he doesn't have a shred of pride or he wouldn't have hidden in a fucking mountain for the last 20 minutes. "Come on out, shit brick," Zoro hollers. "Don't you want to fight?" "Who the hell would want to fight you?" One of Doflamingo's nameless underlings moans not too far away. Zoro glares briefly, and ignores Kitetsu when the katana makes his hand itch to slit the man's throat. His problem child is even more erratic than usual due to the long, unsatisfying fight. There is a brief but heavy moment of silence. Zoro closes his eye, focuses entirely on his haki, and senses Pika as a terrible mass of stone before him. Great. He's still in the plateau. And he still can't cut that in half because there are people that actually matter on the top, like Lucy and Robin. Not to mention the people in the city below who probably don't deserve to die under a zillion tons of rubble. The mass of energy moves slightly downward. Which is annoying, because Zoro's gonna have to move to get Pika in his range again if the guy's moving back to the lower levels. The lower levels? Shit, that's where they've been sending the wounded. Zoro takes off running, slicing lone pillars of stone out of his way as he goes. "You bastard," he growls, "going after the wounded? I knew you were a coward, but that's fucking low." A level down, too far away, stone closes around one of the Hapasu men, and Zoro does the only thing he can to get him to stop. "Hey," He shouts, and uses Shisui to carve a gash in the mountainside 6 meters deep, spanning the width of the plateau. A warning of what he could do but hasn't yet. Have some fucking honor, you soprano voiced, cowardly, 2-bit, squeaky. The wall shakes behind him, pressing outward to form a face. There you are, Zoro growls, stalking forward. We're having a fight, aren't we? So leave other people. Don't you think it's unfair? Pika squeaks, and to Zoro's surprise, he seems to be interested in a conversation of all things, not a fight, which is frankly unacceptable. Luffy took over this kingdom 10 years ago, and yet the people still refuse to recognize him. Zoro cocks a brow at him, resting Kitetsu on his shoulder. Well, yeah. He enslaved half of them and the other half didn't even know it. And below them right now Zoro can still hear the screams of the civilians Doflamingos conscripted to incite chaos. Luffy was a good king. He is the only king. Zoro stares at the stone face disbelievingly, then shakes his head. Look, this ain't gonna be an issue much longer, he tells the stone man, and almost lackadaisically he cuts Pika's serpentine head in two, knowing it won't actually kill the guy. My captain's about to kick Doflamingo's ass. Luffy will never lose. Pika declares loyally. It's unfortunate for the guy that nothing he says in that voice carries any sort of weight, and also that the prospect of Lucy actually losing is nil. Zoro just snorts instead. Yeah, we'll see about that. If Doflamingo beats Lucy, I'll shove a sword up my. Pika disappears into the ground. Fuck, where did you? The statue behind him groans. Zoro whirls around in horror, staring away from the plateau, and at the giant, creaking statue of a man hell-bent on destroying something. It can't be the castle. Doflamingo's up there and Pika's too loyal to interfere. Slapping people off the plateau would bother Doflamingo and lose his fight, too. So where? The statue groans and inches forward. Zoro's gaze slides to the plateau, the old one, where the castle originally was. Shit. Shit, Usopp's over there. And the king, and Viola, and probably loads of other people, and Zoro starts running. Pika's terrible form rises, bigger than he ever was, and then the mountain of a man is on his feet, and he starts to walk. Shit. The island shakes every time Pika moves, and Zoro wonders if it's possible to crack the damn thing in two. This is why Pika drew the fight out so long, isn't it? Why he went into the plateau in the first place? It wasn't just to escape Zoro, it was to clear a path to somewhere else. Create an opening to kill the king. Fuck this bastard, Zoro growls. I'm gonna cut him. How, though? Long distance slash. Nah, too far away already, won't do enough damage. He could take a running leap and get closer, still too far away, damn it. He could just scream really loudly to try and warn Usopp and the others. Distance is really a recurring issue here. Oh wait, fuck, he has a Den Mushi, he can just call them. Except he lost it somewhere. Shit. Well, it's not like they really have time to run anyway, so it's not like losing the stupid snail is really going to make that much difference in the long run. There's a flash of color up ahead. 2 swatches of bright red, a purple dress and green. A misshapen head. Perfect. Shit, this is gonna be fun. What are you smiling about, pirate hunter? The caped king of somewhere or other asks, boxing gloves glowing faintly. My friend's about to be killed. No he ain't, Zoro retorts. He nods to the gloves, remembering the man's attack is a one-hit wonder. Put those away, I've got it covered. The big blonde guy with the missing navy looks down at him, eyebrows raised in skepticism. You do? Zoro smirks, sticks Kitetsu and Shisui in the earth, and pulls out his bandana, tying it around his head. Gimme 2 minutes. Pika is closer to the other plateau than he is to Zoro. He's pretty sure he can hear Usopp screaming from here. That's good. It means he's still alive. I don't think you got that much time, son, the big guy with the crooked head replies. Don't worry, it's Plan 5. The king of somewhere unimportant looks on curiously. Plan 5? Zoro's grin becomes just a bit vicious and even Kitetsu's thrilled enough to harmonize its wailing to Zoro's aura. Fly in the sky and chop him up. The girl who attacked Frankie on Punk Hazard, apparently she's a defector, is the first to speak. That's Plan 5? That's Plan 5, he agrees, and he's too keyed up to care much about their opinions. Well, except the ones he needs, which do not include the possibly traitorous girl. Oi, Director, you can throw people really far, right? The big blonde guy's jaw drops, then snaps shut. I'm a Commodore. Zoro does not care. But you can throw people really far, right? There's a collective moment of silent disbelief, and Zoro, way too thrilled with this decision, just grins in their faces, his teeth like knives. You're not serious, pirate hunter? King number 2 asks. Zoro just raises an expectant eyebrow at Blondie. The guy sighs. Yes, I can throw people really far, but people generally aren't meant to survive it. Zoro tightens the knot on his bandana. I will. He's not trying to be arrogant. He's just stating a fact. If he wasn't so keyed up and pressed for time, he might be a bit more tactful about it, but that's just not happening this time around. Luckily, the others seem to realize this is the case. Blondie looks at King Dude. King Dude shrugs. Blondie sighs. Fine. Hold still while I grab you. Zoro collects his katana, crossing them over his chest. Blondie grabs the back of his jacket. You're gonna die, traitor girl mutters, deadpan. Let rip, draws his arm back, and Zoro hunches into position. Remember you asked for this, the guy mutters. His shoulder tenses. There's a rush of energy. Blondie grunts, and then. Holy shit. Zoro can feel himself breaking the sound barrier, can feel it as shockwaves smash off of him, and he's met with resistance as the air parts reluctantly around his body. A veritable bullet over Dressrosa. Wind wails mercilessly in his ears, pulls at his skin, and exposes his gums to the world as his eyes water. He's grinning too hard for it to matter, anyway. He rolls out of a compact ball in a ripple of air and looks up to see Pika fast approaching. With difficulty, he removes Watto from the pearly leather sheath, and the G-forces threaten to crush his lungs as he grasps the hilt between his teeth. Zoro concentrates and pulls his haki to the fore as it spreads and solidifies over the blades, each of them black with the solid, metallic evidence of his will, a dark ribbon of energy twisting in a double helix around all 3 katana. It's easy as breathing, but breath is scarce with the wind ripping out of his lungs. He can do it without air, underwater, beneath an avalanche if he has to, he made sure. The 9 mountains and the 8 seas constitute one world, he recites mentally, because he has no chance to speak with Watto in his mouth and the wind in his lungs. 1,000 of them form a small chiliocosm. He drags Shisui and Kitetsu into position, and like this, with his haki streaming through and around the blades, echoing and resonating with them, they are indistinguishable to the eye, and even their voices meld together in his mind, a tense, anticipatory harmony rising as his will bolsters them higher. And when I gather and cube that chiliocosm, there's nothing I can't cut. Zoro's flying at the speed of sound and his mind is blank and calm. There is the vicious, clean edge of blades, the song of blood and victory whistling between his spinning katana. But Zoro himself is a vessel of perfect form. He is the arc of a truly aimed arrow, the mirrored reflection of placid water. And he is also the roaring tide, the cresting wave, the tectonic shift of earth and magma, the rise and fall of the sun and moon, the deliberate breath of all of nature's harmonies. The resonance of the world around him fills his senses, echoes against his own voice. There is the sharp whistle of air against his body, the terrible screams of those below and those before him. There is the creaking, groaning body of Pika, aloft on moving stone, and the infinite imperfections of his golem form. Santoryu, secret technique, the billion-fold world trichiliocosm. His 3 blades descend 1,000 times at once, and Pika is severed in half. The force is so great that Pika's top half ascends 100 meters, and Zoro himself sails easily through the gap he's carved, bloodlust singing in his veins. He looks up to check, and finds Pika's roving eyes in the statue's face. Nowhere to run now, fucker. He hits the plateau easily, Blondie's throw having just begun its downward descent, softening the landing. He kicks off the wall immediately, refusing gravity's hold, and leaps up toward the grotesquely large face. Pika catches sight of him, and squeaks his name. 2 thrusts, one with Kitetsu and the other with Shisui, and Pika is halved once more. Behind him Usopp wails in relief, but Zoro pays him no mind. He just waits for the dust to clear and watches his opponent closely. Come on, where'd you go? The eye on Zoro's right blinks open, and Zoro reacts immediately, slashing off the arm. And shit, he's too far away. He uses falling rock and debris to launch himself higher, closer to his target. Zoro hopes the people below have the good sense to run away, because there's not much he can do for them at the moment. The hand of the severed arm twitches. Zoro cuts off the fingers at the knuckles. "Come on out, Pika," he demands around Watto's hockey black hilt. "You've only been going after those who don't want to fight, it's time to pay the price." Nothing, the fingers don't move and neither does the arm. They're still falling, but he's played this waiting game before, and Zoro is fucking done with this cowardly bullshit. He carves the arm in 5 pieces, leaping up on a closer stone. "How long you gonna hide, shit brick? You think you've won because you cornered me?" The squeaking voice comes from the stone second on the right. And Zoro grins around Watto's hilt as Pika emerges from it. "Human. You won't look so smug when I'm clad in hockey," Pika declares. Zoro goes huh, because he thought Pika would have pulled that trick out earlier if he had it all along. "I don't need stone to win." "You've needed it up to now," he retorts, unimpressed even as purple-black hockey spreads over Pika's form. His entire form, which Zoro admits is an accomplishment. "I'm going to knock you down," Pika squeaks, taking up a ready stance. Zoro smirks, crouching with Shisui forward, ebony light still whirling around his blades. "Only if your will is stronger than mine." "It is," Pika's shrill voice carries a certainty it should not. Zoro's lips curl in anticipation and he raises his swords, the triangle of their hilts forming before him. "Of the 9 mountains and 8 seas," he intones. His mind clears easily, that blank space inside him already close to the surface, and even Pika's childishly high-pitched voice cannot pierce the calm within. His katana hum in transcendent harmony beneath the resounding echo of his will. Their blades a perfect ring of black lightning before and around him. Pika leaps forward, sword drawn, and Zoro pours his will into the blades, the terrible weight of the promises on his shoulders, the inevitable bloody trap of his destiny. He will be the greatest, his katana will serve the pirate king, he will not lose. "There is nothing I can't cut." The arc of black lightning burns brighter and Zoro leaps forth to meet his opponent mid-air, 3,000 worlds. He slashes through Pika, navel to scalp, the man's hockey practically paper beneath the deafening clangor of his own. "There is nothing to your will," he thinks. "How could you not know?" Pika gasps, blood spewing from his wounds and Zoro growls at him around Watto. "Now stop bugging people walking on the straight and narrow." Pika says nothing. Pika's possibly dead, if Zoro misjudged the amount of blood Pika had to lose, but honestly he can't say he's too bothered by the prospect. And Zoro leaps back to the platform's outer wall using falling debris. Falling debris. Right. Above him a quarter of Pika's massive form descends upon the platform and while Zoro could survive its fall, cut his way out, the people on the platform. "Come on, King, what's your name?" "Your turn." There is a terrible boom of light and fire. So great Zoro squints against its radiance as energy burns through the air, burns through stone and oxygen and matter itself. Then it's over. Zoro looks out to the far plateau and grins. "Good work, King number 2. Plan 5, accomplished." He snorts to himself and grins as he carves the words into the bulging outcrop of the plateau with Shisui's long blade. "He said it would work. Take that, traitor girl." He releases the hockey on his blades, the black metal film receding back into his palms. With a smirk he gives Watto a quick once-over, checking the edge for imperfections, and is relieved to find none. The blade rings high and clear, Shisui a void several octaves lower, and even Kitetsu hums in satiation in the back of Zoro's mind. Pika's blood still on the blue-white metal. He looks up, and half an island away, a storm brews atop the castle, and if Zoro concentrates, he can faintly sense the echoing bell of Lucy's voice. He smirks. "I got mine," he challenges. "Your turn." Lucy enters battle with Doflamingo with wrath in her fists. She's angry. She's angry over Bellamy, over Doflamingo's unworthy hold on him. She's angry over Torao, and all the pain this man has caused him. She's angry over Rebecca, who lost everything to him, and she's angry for all the people Wango bids them to his will. She's not gonna put up with this fucker anymore. But just as she readies herself for another bot, Lucy takes a step back, and her sandal slips in something wet and red. She almost knows what she's going to see before she turns around. "Torao," she breathes in horror. "Torao, Nope, she knew Torao was up here somewhere. She knew he was hurt bad, his presence faint and weak. But looking down at him, bullet holes in his back and a pool of blood, too much blood beneath him. Lucy can't help but think he's dead, I'm too late. For a moment it is not Torao before her but Ace. There is ice and snow around them as cold seeps into her bones and she is bathed in blood, and no, I can't have failed again. She hasn't. It's not Ace, it's Torao, and this is not Marineford. Torao's alive and he's going to stay that way because she is not today who she was then. Ignoring Doflamingo, Lucy kneels beside her friend, heedless of the blood that stains her knees. Come on, Torao, I know you're alive, wake up, wake up. You really are like a dog, aren't you? Doflamingo says behind her. A loyal beast unable to accept her master's death. I was joking before, but were you two fucking? That might explain a few things. Torao's face is slack and pale. His right arm is missing. Just gone, and he has a messily tied tourniquet around the stump. She knew that happened. Felt an echo of it. It's worse to see it in person. He was so confident about your arrival, too. Kept babbling about miracles, like those exist in this world. But he shut up quick when I emptied my clip in his. You're not a pirate. There's a pause from behind her, and she carefully arranges Torao with shaking hands onto his left side. She doesn't want to put pressure on his most grievous wounds, but she's afraid he'll bleed out if left alone. She wishes Chopper were here. He'd know what to do. He'd make it so Torao could save himself. Who the hell cares? Snot warbles. Lucy stands, fists clenched on both sides as Torao's blood dribbles down her legs. Bellamy was your nakama. Torao too, once. She turns to face Doflamingo, fire in her heart and burning in her soul, and Lucy can feel her haki whipping against the confines of her skin. Desperate to test itself against this monster. Because she can tell he has will, and Lucy is ready to break it. I hate people like you. Doflamingo stares for a moment more, and then a low chuckle starts in his belly until he's nearly bent over with his laughter. You're right. They're mine. Doflamingo crows. And once they became mine, they should have known this day would come. The day they die for me. That was their agreement. After all, Mingo snaps upright, fingers twisting as he goes. They should have known the cost of being the protected, that one day I'd collect on their lives. Something rings in Lucy's memory. Snowharpy spoke like that. Are you talking about Monet? He chuckles. She was lucky, all things considered. It could have gone much worse for her. His smile widens. She's dead now. Sookbed to injuries as I asked her to blow Punk Hazard sky high. She would have done it with a smile, too. The grin grows vicious as blood vessels bulge in his forehead. Serves her right for losing. The beast inside Lucy twists and she lunges forward, arms black with haki, and the sky rages above as wailing souls beg below. She claws at him in a flurry of fists and metal, her anger on a precipice on something greater, more. Doflamingo grabs her foot as she kicks for his head, and she's flying forward with the fury of a relentless will on her shoulders. That's not what nakama are for, she howls, and her fist would have taken his head from his shoulders had Snot not deterred her. You die for them, you dumbass. As if I would ever shed my heavenly blood for mere mortals, Doflamingo scoffs. You Ds have no sense of place, no reverence. The beast inside her howls and claws its way to the fore as her fists descend in unforgiving judgment. What is your flag for? She snarls. He blocks her blows and Snot throws bombs her way, so she kicks him instead, her leg wrapping around the web of string at force. It is not a debilitating blow, but it is a little satisfying at least. If you're a pirate, what does it mean? Doflamingo holds her off with infuriating ease as she rains blow after blow on his head, his spiderweb shield glowing with blade-sharp strains. He laughs, and Lucy wants to shove her fist through his jaw. My flag? He asks, smiling even as Lucy sprays her own blood against his lips. Why, it's a herald to the rest of the world, of course. I am God, and you humans are all slaves of mine. Lucy pushes away from him, her body still between Doflamingo and Torao's prone form. She wipes blood from her face with her wrist, her eyes locked on her opponent. She feels the corner of her mouth turn up in a vicious facsimile of her usual grin, the fight rising and breaking inside her as she aches to tear Doflamingo's tongue out through his throat. God, you say? She repeats, and fury makes her voice soft. Something inside her burns and aches for blood. "You're not a pirate, then," she declares, and there is a rumbling and shifting in the earth, or maybe just in her. Snot sneers, unimpressed. "It's not like that matters." But Doflamingo looks passively curious. "And who are you to say?" "Funny you should ask," she thinks, and she places her hat atop her head, stares down Doflamingo from under the brim. "Monkey D. Lucy. I'll be king of pirates soon." Doflamingo just stares for a moment before chuckling. What a delusional brat. His smile shows teeth and blood. "You're never getting out of here alive." But Lucy pays him no heed, is unbothered by his skepticism. All that matters is that she beats him into the earth, that she buries him so deep he can never crawl out, that he goes to bed weeping every night hereafter thinking of her fists and wrath, if he lives at all. Lucy does not care either way, and she will not feel a shred of guilt for ending him if that's what today brings. He is something opposed to freedom, and Lucy is going to tear him down. Inside she rages with all the feral rabidity of the beast she might be, the vicious rip and moan of her will a force all its own. Lucis never had much patience for men who believe themselves God. When he makes it to the top of the plateau, Usopp practically hauls him over the edge by his wrist, weeping. "I thought I was gonna die Zoro," he moans, and then wraps himself around the swordsman in his best impression of a barnacle. "You're all right, aren't you? Aren't you?" Zoro shifts uncomfortably, unaccustomed to anyone but Lucy and Chopper randomly hugging him. He doesn't brush Usopp off though. Usopp's nakama. Yeah, I'm fine." "Oh my god, is that him? Hey, it's the guy who just saved us all." Zoro looks up from Usopp's curly head, the guy's still clinging to his shirt. Just in time to see a mob of extremely grateful Dressrosa start clapping and hollering. It takes Zoro a moment to realize it's him they're cheering for. "Well done, Zoro Dono," Kinemon cheers, and he walks over to clap Zoro on the back. Zoro raises an eyebrow. Apparently saving his life means Zoro gets to escape the thief title now. Thank goodness, because that shit was getting annoying. It's unfortunate that Zombie asked Zoro not to tell anyone of his fate, but it's not like Zoro's about to break his promise to a dead guy over something as stupid as reputation. But the attention is highly uncomfortable. Usually when he's faced with a crowd like this, it's because they're full of wary awe, rather than admiration and gratitude. He much prefers it when Lucy's in the spotlight. All he did was cut up a statue. Also, Usopp is now wiping his snot on Zoro's jacket, and the guy may be nakama but Zoro has boundaries. "Okay. Usopp. Jareth, I'm fine. I'm just so relieved, yeah, I can see that. Be relieved when this stupid cage goes away." "What is that?" One of the Dressrosa cry. The woman points in horror to the castle and Zoro knows before he turns. The sky is black and red, lightning crackling around the castle as battle rages in the epicenter. There is war and violence and perfect victory, a clash of a burning bell and screeching violin. There is a demonic chorus of the damned warring against the sonorous orchestra of a vengeful angel. There is a mad king bent on destruction and a smooth wall of careless wrath to meet him. Lucis Will is the herald of a champion, bent on rising up, and Doflamingo's the march of an old conqueror, fighting to keep his place. She is a force of nature, and he is stone itself. Around them, some Dressrosa drop into unconsciousness, foaming at the mouth. The combatants' power wreathes the island, saturates the air and earth itself. Zoro feels the wills of Doflamingo and Lucy break against his own even this far away, but he does not so much as blink. Beside him, Usopp yelps and covers his ears in disbelief, moaning Lucy's name in something close to terror and burgeoning on awe. Zoro watches on, feels it as Lucy seeks to conquer the sky itself, and waits for Lucy's power to crest and break over Doflamingo's with the ring of an echoing belfry, as he knows it will. As it must, for Lucy is going to be king. There is Toro, prone from exhaustion, frustrated, and swearing on the outside while weeping on the inside. There is Doflamingo, towering over him, smiling, a demon come back from the brink of death, about to trade Toro's soul for his. There is a foot above Toro's head, the heel sharp enough to crush his skull. Lucy's body moves on its own, a blink and a something less than a thought carrying her forward. There is a single sandaled foot poised above the labored body of her friend, and it stops Doflamingo cold. There is a moment of silence in which Lucy looks without really seeing, and there is nothing on earth but Torao's soft swearing and choked breaths. "How dare you stop me?" Lucy's foot doesn't move at all. She doesn't so much shake or tremble despite the strain, and she looks up at the giant of a man that hurt her friends and who wants to continue to do so. She knows her expression is ice, but there is fire within her, burning and licking through her body and mind, and her will is stronger than it ever was. Between them Torao whimpers, once, quietly, but it is enough. It is too much. "I was just looking to smash Law's head." He rears back, his leg glinting black, and Lucy swings her own foot forward. They clash over Torao's body, and Lucy could not hold back her will if she wanted to. She doesn't want to. There is fire within her and fire without, a veritable storm of chaos and heat as Conqueror's haki rips up her spine and out from her like lightning, like destruction and creation itself. There is cold calm certainty within her, an inexorable storm of passion and fury that will lead her toward her goal, an instinctive brand upon her soul compelling her to rise, fight, defeat and win, one that informs her that victory is certain as breath, as the sun and the earth itself. She is a lightning rod of calamity, and as her will rises higher, higher, seeking to crest and tide over the wall of Doflamingo's own, she feels the floodgates unlock inside her, the caged beast within no longer constrained by the casing of 1,000 seals. Doflamingo's will lashes cruel and electric against hers, but he is nothing, no one, not in the face of her, and as she holds his gaze unabashed and unrestrained, she knows she will win. Beneath their feet Torao gasps, choking on the force of their collision, and Lucy pays it no heed. Black-red light spews between them, arcing apart at the points where their wills do battle. Power creates a vacuum, sucks air from between them, ruffles their clothes with wind, and Lucy presses forward, forward, ever forward as the giant of a man tries to crush her with legacy and intimidation alone. But Lucy is not a slave. Lucy is free and Lucy has will. Power compresses matter between them, sparks light and fire, their warring souls made manifest. Torao is blown back and away by the force of it as stone crushes under their feet, and as Doflamingo leans in to try and put her down, she leans up and forward to scrabble at his bloody throne. From far away, it seems, a voice reaches her. "And so his divine right is revealed to you, Straw Hat." His birth nurtured madness within him. His fate fed him anger. The world changed this man into a perfect demon. No less, the ultimate evil, handcrafted by heaven and hell. Dafi is the true king who was chosen. She hears the words. She sees their truth in the form of the man trying to crush her with a will like a chainsaw against her skin. But there is nothing inside Lucy capable of capitulating. This one hurt her friends, and Lucy will not rest until he is dethroned, until all his nightmarish deeds have been atoned for, and she will not be overcome. So what? There is another breaking within her, another molten well of power greater than the first, and there is the cresting tide, the flinting shale of Doflamingo's will, and he is the one who flinches back, just as she knew he would all along. They will clash again, over and over until they are both bloody and exhausted, and one of them stands victorious over the other's broken form, nearly animal in bellicose pride, but for now she has won, and she will do it again and again, as many times as she needs. Lucy is a king in the making. She bows for nothing and no one but her own will. With the guillotine that is the birdcage above their heads, Zoro watches Lucy fight Doflamingo with his fist gripping Watto's hilt so tightly his knuckles are white beneath his skin. Their fight has moved away from the castle, into the sky and city of Dressrosa, and he can still sense the continued clashes of their haki as they beat against one another. Lucy's in a new gear, one Zoro's never seen before, and he knows it's going to take a hefty amount of restraint to not yell at her for it later. Using that much haki that quickly and intensely isn't natural. It's reckless to even try. He can't fault her for busting it out though. Doflamingo needs to be taken down, by any means necessary. They're in the final stages of the fight, he's pretty sure. Doflamingo's in better shape than she is from what he can tell, but Lucy's got him on the ropes, and he can't seem to land a hit. Lucy chases him like a missile, and finally, after a misjudged attack that leaves Doflamingo wide open, he crashes back into the mountain of his new castle. The force of the impact cleaves the south side of the plateau apart, and as the dust begins to clear, Zoro sees Doflamingo's pink coat buried deep in the stone. Did she do it? Kinemon whispers breathlessly behind him. Zoro doesn't answer for a moment. There's nothing but silence, and it's like all of Dressrosa holds its breath as dirt and gravel spill off the mountain, willing their tormentor to fall unconscious and return their freedom. But then, a trembling starts. A vibration Zoro feels deep within the earth, traveling through the leather soles of his boots, and rumbling in his chest almost too light to notice if he were anyone else. Screams of terror begin at the edge of the island, and Zoro looks up and grits his teeth because he knows it's contracting. Below, Lucy, too, seems to realize that their guillotine just became a noose, and she rushes Doflamingo once more, her distorted arm winding back for another punch. But Zoro's been watching her carefully and realizes a moment before it happens that she's going to. Lucy drops unceremoniously to the city below, her voice flickering on Zoro's awareness in weak bursts of a muffled wind chime, and he takes off running. Lucy needs time. Or someone else needs to deliver the final blow. Either way, Zoro's needed at her side, and that's where he's going to be. He turns to Usopp, Kinemon, and Kanjuro, clapping his nakama on the shoulder as he goes. "You three," he says, shoving them forward, "are going to stop the cage." Tears, even as he moves them over to Kanjuro's shitty ladder. Usopp says awkwardly. "What? Stop. The cage," he orders, pointing to the birdcage above their heads. "And find Frankie, have him help. Hopefully he's destroyed the factory by now." How?" Usopp asks, bewildered. "Push," Zoro orders sternly. Usopp squeaks. "That's not a thing a normal person can do," he protests. Zoro shoves him over the edge unceremoniously, raising an unsympathetic eyebrow when he clings to the thick black posts that make up the ladder and doesn't move. "It's one man's power," Zoro sneers. "Figure it out." Usopp moans a little, but Kanjuro and Kinemon cajole him into moving, and they make their way down with a certain mix of resentment, bewilderment, and haste. Zoro nods to Viola. "Get as many people pushing on the cage as you can." There's a glint in her eyes, as she nods in return, and Zoro suddenly understands how this woman made it for a decade living under Doflamingo. Love Cook never stood a chance with her, she's way out of his league. Right. Time to find his girlfriend. Zoro draws Shisui and Kitetsu, coats them in haki, does a quick check of the area below, and jumps off the side of the plateau. There's a chorus of gasps and protests from behind him, but Zoro just grins and twists in midair, and stabs his katana into the stone. The earth and brick part easily under his blades and will, offering just enough resistance to let him control his descent. A trail of gravel follows him down, the hilts of his katana biting into his hands as they protest this particular use. But Zoro ignores it and the strain in his shoulders as he holds himself in careful form. He doesn't have time to do this nicely. Soon the earth begins to curve away from him, inward, to the narrower base of the plateau. Zoro checks his place, draws his blades out from the stone just a little, and swings his legs back and out once, twice. He pushes off the plateau, blades in hand, and easily clears the rooftop of the building below. He hits the terracotta tiles hard, and rolls his momentum off over his soldier. He slides a little as he goes, the rooftop vaulted and covered with poor footing, but he manages to get his feet under him before he slides off entirely. He stands up over the edge to gain his bearings. "When did you become a ninja?" Usopp demands from the ladder. "That's not fair, I just got muscles." "He's not a ninja, Raizo's a ninja," Kanjuro replies. Zoro rolls his eyes. "Go stop the cage." "How?" I believe Zorodono mentioned pushing. "That's not possible." Zoro ignores them, setting his sights on the dusty streets below. This is a tall building, and Zoro guesses he's about 6 stories up. Probably too high to jump without breaking something, and judging from the screams of the Dressrosa up ahead, they don't have time to wait for Zoro to hobble around on a broken ankle. He swears and starts running across the rooftop, straight for where he senses Lucy. He's surprised she's conscious, at all, with the fluttery way her voice chimes in his senses. At the edge of the rooftop is another, this one only a story down or so. Zoro jumps, and jumps again when he spies a balcony, 2 levels down. He grabs the banister and vaults down to the street below. Dust kicks up around his feet but he hits the ground running. The whole island shakes as the birdcage contracts. The little vibrations were obvious from the plateau but they're even stronger here. Doflamingo needs to die. That's all there is to it. The streets are confusing. They'd be unfamiliar even without all the destruction the possessed Dressrosa, Marines, and pirates have wreaked on it, but he suspects even Nami would have a difficult time navigating this. It's all rubble and half-destroyed buildings and fire. The cobblestone cracked in places and entire neighborhoods squashed to pieces where Pika stood earlier. It's a good thing Zoro's always been able to find Lucy when he needs to. It's hard to get lost when he's just making a beeline for her faint presence up ahead. He whips around a corner, blades out, and nearly decapitates a surprised Marine as he hurtles over rubble. Zoro doesn't stop for him, doesn't even acknowledge the almost manslaughter, but half a block ahead a man in white and purple stands pensively amid the rubble. He hates to do it, but he slows to a wary walk as he approaches. This guy's an admiral, and even if Zoro's not great at reading people, he can still sense the fury radiating off of him. If he decides to attack, there's not much Zoro will be able to do but fight, and if that happens he's likely not going to get to Lucy in time. The admiral doesn't attack. The admiral doesn't even move, his unseeing eyes locked on something red at his feet. The man in the gambling hall was kind, he remembers. Lucy liked him. It must gall a kind man with strength like his to abide by the likes of Doflamingo. Pirate Hunter, the admiral greets. Zoro doesn't respond. He's just realized that the heap of blood and flesh at the admiral's feet is a child, half crushed under rubble. It's impossible to tell what the child looked like, or even the gender. From the size, it was maybe a 6-year-old. He can tell the throat was slit before rubble fell on the body though. Zoro stops before the admiral, the dead child halfway between them, his fists clenched around his katana. Kitetsu wails for vengeance and Shisui is the maw of a void, and it takes strength Zoro did not always possess to hold himself in check, to not barrel straight past this scene and onto its perpetrator. I assume you were off to assist your captain, the admiral says softly. Zoro is not stupid enough to mistake that tone for anything but righteous fury. The kid probably bled out before being crushed. Zoro does not know if that's better or not. We're going to bring Doflamingo down, Zoro says matter-of-factly. He takes in the trembling hands, the slight shaking of the loose stones around them, and has a realization. You're Navy, right? So you can't touch him. The lower half of the admiral's face is hidden behind his scarf as he ducks his head in what might be shame. That seems to be the way of it. Zoro scrutinizes him a moment more. There's a reason he never wanted to join the Marines. Aside from his general authority issues. He takes oaths seriously, would never be able to bend rules to the situation as a Marine like Smoker does. He wonders if this man isn't the same. He wonders why he took the job, if that's the case. Our crew is trying to stop the cage, he tells him. Your duty won't stop you from helping, right? Scarred eyes lock on Zoro. It feels like a test. Zoro stands his ground. I am betting on your captain, Pirate Hunter, the man says finally. A small, tremulous smile creases the weathered face. If she's anything like you, I think I made the right decision. Zoro does not move, but the admiral does. He carefully drapes his pristine white cloak over the child's body. Blood seeps through the cloth quickly, but it is all they can do for now. You pirates are absurd, the admiral tells him, sounding almost fond, but then, a good gamble always is. And with that, the admiral walks slowly past Zoro, pausing only a moment more. I'm counting on your captain and your crew, though I suppose you do not need me to tell you that. Zoro huffs. Zoro takes orders from one person only, and if Lucy could ignore a situation like the one they're mired in, he wouldn't follow her the way he does. He wouldn't be half as in love with her either. Damn straight. The admiral snorts. Best of luck to the Straw Hat Pirates then. Not many pirates get a blessing like that from a Marine admiral, Zoro muses as he runs for Lucy's weak presence. He's not far away now, only a few blocks to go. Then again, he thinks, a vicious grin splitting his face. They're the crew of the Pirate King. Why shouldn't they be the exception? Zoro finds Lucy leaning on shaking arms, and despite the situation, despite the weakness in her frame, it sends a spike of relief through his gut. If Lucy's going to stand, then she's still trying to fight, and that means she's not anywhere near as bad off as she's been before. She doesn't seem to sense him as he approaches, just trembles as she tries again and again to push herself to her feet. He replaces his katana to their sheaths, and she doesn't even turn her head to look up at him when he approaches. He kicks debris and rock aside as he kneels before her and grasps her shoulders, pulling her up a bit. She feels too hot under his hands, like an open flame, and he studiously ignores the tacky blood smeared across her belly, the gash on her hip exposed by the open shirt, and the wounds that look like bullet holes scattered across her torso. She blinks blearily at him, her eyes dull with exhaustion and horrifically red with burst blood vessels, probably from the strain of overusing her haki. Lucy's head rolls back on her shoulders, incoordinated and nearly limp. "Zoro? You're an idiot," he greets. He doesn't let his concern bleed into his voice. Her lips twitch up in response, just a little, and she leans into his hands. He can't tell if she means to or if it's just her exhaustion speaking. "So are you." "Yeah, but I can move," he retorts. He leans a little closer, trying to get her attention. Her eyes aren't quite tracking his face, and he wonders if she has a concussion on top of everything else. The birdcage is still up. Something dark and molten flashes in Lucy's eyes, and her right hand struggles up to grasp the lapel of his jacket in a weak grip. "I need 10 minutes. Zoro nods, doesn't feel a shred of doubt or skepticism. If Lucy says she needs 10 minutes, she needs 10 minutes. I can get you that. Behind him the mountain explodes again, and Zoro doesn't even have to look to know it's Doflamingo coming after Lucy. The screams of the Dressrosa citizens speak for themselves. So too does the stampede of people rushing past them in their desperation to get away. Not a one of them stopped to help their would-be savior. They're pirates. It's not like Zoro expected any different. Lucy slumps forward, her forehead bumping against his shoulder. She makes a frustrated noise as her strength fails her again, and Zoro shifts a little, wrapping his left arm around her shoulders to let her lean a little more comfortably against him. Okay. Doflamingo's coming. He needs to get Lucy to a safe place, and keep him occupied for 10 minutes while she recovers. Shit. There's nothing but rubble around here. He's going to have to pick her up and run. Luffy? Zoro looks up at the voice, his right hand sliding instinctively to his katana. He relaxes when he sees a girl with long pink hair and a green cape, the handle of one of the Dressrosa broadswords poking out at a nearly bare hip. It's the ostracized princess, and her dark eyes are wide and locked on Lucy's exhausted frame. Lucy twists a little, trying to look at the other girl. Zoro takes pity on her, and helps her move, sliding her back and into his chest. "Rebecca," she breathes. What are you doing here?" The girl's fists clench at her side, and her lower lip trembles. Princess. All three of them look up to see a large man in a golden helmet throw himself into a kowtow at the teenage gladiator's feet. Rebecca, for her part, blinks at him in shock, taking an instinctive step back and away from him. Guillotines. Lucy's fist closes around Zoro's collar as she tries to pull herself up. "Announcer man?" "From the Colosseum?" Zoro asks absently. He's keeping his senses trained on Doflamingo, paying attention to the line of fire and blood as it draws closer and closer. Shit, he needs to go. Get Lucy out of here. "I am shamed, princess," Guillotines declares, his forehead pressed into the broken earth. "For years I allowed your humiliation. I participated in your oppression, you. A member of the innocent royal family who guarded Dressrosa well for the longest period of peace our nation has ever seen." The man's voice breaks. "I am in a lifetime of debt, but I wish to make amends, starting now." Rebecca looks overwhelmed, completely bewildered. You don't owe me." "I do," Guillotines insists. "I owe you my pride." "Oi," Zoro interrupts. Normally he wouldn't interfere. But Doflamingo's close, too close, and he is not letting that bastard anywhere near Lucy until she can throw a proper punch again. He levels his gaze on the girl, shock plain on her face. What are you doing here?" I. She glances at Guillotines, still prostrated and shaking before her. She lets out a breath, uncertainty filling her eyes. "I'm not sure." Zoro growls, frustrated. "Are you here to help or not?" Something blinks into Rebecca's eyes. Something like hope or determination or an answer. "Yes." Zoro juts his chin to Lucy, still leaning against him, her eyes half closed, like she's close to passing out. "Can you protect her for 10 minutes? Lucy makes a questioning noise into his shoulder, but he says nothing in response. Rebecca's eyes widen. Her shoulders slump. "I'm a pacifist." Zoro feels his aura darken, You're a what? I'm a pacifist. It's true, the royal family has always, and that's worked out well for you all, has it? Zoro snarls, and he grips Lucy a little tighter. Her head lolls weakly into his neck. He can feel Doflamingo approaching, too close, too close, too close. Pacifism's gonna get rid of that cage, is it? Rebecca goes pale, her mouth thinning in anger. To harm another is. Is that all you think a sword is for? He asks darkly, impatient. The girl's eyes water. My mother, I don't care, Zoro interrupts. I heard you and the king. You think you're gonna worry about losing yourself? When you're dead? When everybody's dead? Because you refused to protect the person you chose to save you? Rebecca says nothing. Gyat stares at him agog, eyes wide with shock or affront or both. Lucy tugs weakly on his collar. Zoro, it's their code. Yeah, Zoro agrees, refusing to take his eyes off of the girl. And it's stupid. It makes them beg for others' protection. For Lucis, in particular, and it's put her in a state so weak she can't even stand. He'd follow Lucis' orders no matter what, but he disdains of the idea of protecting people unwilling to fight for themselves. He knows Lucy does too, that she wouldn't have been so willing to confront Doflamingo if the Tontatas hadn't planned a rebellion themselves, if Trafalgar hadn't gone and gotten himself shot. Rebecca flinches. Zoro holds her gaze steadily, forcing her to see reality for what it is. Then her eyes flit to Lucy, and something steals within them. Her spine straightens, and Rebecca's hand comes to rest on the hilt of her sword. Gyats, she says, her eyes still on Lucy, and Zoro can see her watch his captain's labored breathing. Do you remember my family's creed? The big man gulps and nods. War is upon us, your majesty. I shall not lose myself within it, she responds. Something sets in her jaw. All right, I can do it, protect her. Princess, Gyats protests. Your promise, for years, you. I refused to fight in the arena because there was no reason to, Rebecca says calmly. It was a game. A spectacle. She shakes her head sharply, like she's trying to dispel her own foolishness. That was about reminding Dressrosa of who we once were. Who we weren't when under Doflamingo's reign. Her eyes sharpen. This isn't a game. This is about life. About who we might be one day, if we don't lose ourselves entirely. Rebecca turns to Gyats, her voice rising. I want Dressrosa to live. I want us to be free. I want us to defend that freedom, not fear another cage, or wait for another rescuer. The big man's eyes well with tears. Princess, Rebecca shakes her head. If you wish to help, you can carry Luffy. I'll make sure nothing harms her. This last is said to Zoro, and the weight of her gaze makes him trust the words. Gyats hesitates for a moment, uncertain. Yes, princess. Yes, I can. He stands, and turns to Zoro, holding out his arms, expectant. Zoro slides his rags and lifts. She feels too light, weak as she is, and the stillness about her is just wrong. She makes a faint noise of pain as he moves to the big man, and he sets her in the announcer's arms as gently as he can, accounting for speed. 10 minutes, right Lucy? He asks. Lucy blinks at him, bleary-eyed, and nods. Zoro quirks a grin. If you're a second late, I'm finishing him off myself. Lucy frowns at him, surprisingly forceful for the state she's in. I want to hit him, she whines. Zoro's grin turns a little savage, and he reaches for his bandana. Don't be late then. Lucy pouts, but Zoro turns to Rebecca. You, make sure she's safe. There are enemies other than Doflamingo, and even if Zoro's keeping him occupied, the Shichibukai's range inside the birdcage is unfortunate. The princess's eyes flash, and she draws her sword, holding it at a casual ready position. I'll protect her. Zoro believes her, and turns his back on all three of them. Go, he's coming. Zoro, Lucy croaks, and he sees a little blood bubble up on her chin out of the corner of his eye. He cut off Torao's arm. Lucy's eyes dart to his katana, and Zoro understands. If he did the same to you, he could hurt your dream. Don't underestimate him. It's not a lack of faith. It's not even concern. It's much more visceral than that. It's the knowledge of what an injury like that could do to Zoro and his goals. It's a will to protect something much more important to Zoro than his life, than his limbs. Sure, Zoro will still be the world's greatest if all he could use was his teeth. So long as there is breath in his body, he will be the world's greatest. But losing a limb would be a setback. A terrible one that would cost him the use of a sword forever, since he would refuse any prosthetics Frankie could make him. Lucy knows that. She knows that because she knows him, and remembered even when she was only half conscious, and he loves her so goddamn much sometimes he can't breathe. Got it, he tells her, and sets Wado Ichimonji between his teeth, the flat edges of Shisui and Kitetsu facing the oncoming threat as he crouches in a defensive position, the hilts of his swords before him for ready offense. There is fire, too close, much too close for comfort. Doflamingo is less than a block away, and the retreating footsteps behind him aren't moving fast enough to be reassuring. His senses flash in warning, and beneath his feet an arcing knot of razor-sharp strings burst from the earth. He jumps back and out of the way just in time, crossing his blades before him defensively to block. The strings are not tied to each other though, and they burst around his katana, forcing him back a step as he instinctively protects his face. Zoro narrows his eyes. This is going to be annoying, especially if the strings in each spear can move individually like that. Their flexibility is a problem. Behind him, he hears Rebecca gasp, and a grunt as the princess tackles the announcer, deflecting a spike of bloody string as she does. Lucy remains untouched, just as the princess promised. Zoro can sense it without even looking. He channels Haki into his blades. Strings that sharp are bound to leave a mark. A dark laugh bubbles up within the encroaching flames. Zoro narrows his gaze. Pirate Hunter, Roronoa Zoro. Demon of East Blue, and First Mate of Straw Hat Lucy. Horned glasses flash in the blazing light. Didn't you fall in a hole earlier? Zoro doesn't respond. The closer Doflamingo gets, the worse he looks. He's starting to wonder if the guy will even make it the 10 minutes before Lucy comes back to kick his ass. It doesn't matter, I suppose, Doflamingo continues. His steps are slow and methodical, like he hasn't a care in the world. Beneath his feet, a sick coil of string writhes, the white strands black with blood. You have some skill with the sword, but you can't beat me. The man's smile turns sadistic and manically gleeful. You'd be captain of your own crew if that were possible. Zoro raises an eyebrow. You're Lucy's opponent, not mine. Zoro smiles around his katana. You'd be dead already, were it up to me. Doflamingo presses on, like he thinks he's gotten to Zoro somehow. A bleeding heart, held in line out of, what, loyalty, duty, Doflamingo's lip curls. Obedience, like the rest of humanity's drones? Zoro nearly laughs. He's never been accused of being too emotional before, that's for sure. Or obedient, geez. Lucy's my captain, not my master. And I wouldn't kill you for what you've done to this island. The image of the dead and bloodied child flashes in his mind, and Zoro privately admits that statement is not quite true. His senses scream, and on his left a thick coil of string races for his head. But he's seen it once, he's not going to be moved again. He leans over at the waist, 1 foot back for balance, and carves the deadly strike in two with a single horizontal slash carrying enough force to cleave a mountain in half. The string falls harmlessly to the ground, neatly cut to pieces. Doflamingo chuckles, like he's amused. It's creepy because Zoro can sense the rage boiling off of him, can feel his will batter against Zoro's own, but it does nothing, burns less than the sun on a clear day. Oh, then what would you kill me for? Zoro's lips curl around his blade. I'd kill you. Zoro starts, rage bleeding into his aura, and he knows in that moment he is violence personified, Kitetsu howling in echoing bloodlust alongside his heart. Because you put bullet holes in my captain. His blades arc in one quick slash to carve a long line in the rubble before him. It stretches across the plaza they stand in, as far as the eye can see, just a few inches deep. But she's claimed your head. I'm only here to buy her time. Zoro thinks of the dead child, of the blood on Lucy's body, and relishes in the wary pause he gets from his opponent as his aura turns into something dark and terrible, a presence even monsters would do well to fear. For the next 10 minutes, you won't move past this line, the swordsman declares, and Zoro's smile is full of ivory knives. A single step over, and I'll consider it a loss. Doflamingo cocks his head, arrogant. You're an arrogant one, aren't you? You got a problem with that, Pirate King? Zoro crosses his blades before him, unbothered, his blood boiling for a fight as his grin becomes something feral. It's simple. I made a vow. The sky is filled with smoke and ash, the coppery scent of blood assaults her nostrils, and the earth shakes beneath her as the damned birdcage contracts around the island. Everything hurts. To move is to fire pain across flayed nerves, and the announcer man carrying her doesn't have the luxury of being careful as they run. Lucy doesn't blame him. The 10 minutes after using Gear 4 are always agony, even when she isn't being dragged away from a psychopath by a gladiator and an announcer. The absence of hockey is disconcerting. She can't keep her eyes open, can't even see 3 feet in front of her when she does. Rebecca is a blur of pink and green, and the disturbing blankness in her awareness frustrates her. She's blind as a newborn kitten, and it's infuriating. It's her own damn fault though, for not finishing the fight. She could be happily passed out with Dressrosa and her crew safe if she'd just gotten that last punch in. Her endurance in Gear 4 has improved, but it's not what it needs to be, and because of that, Zoro's got to keep a madman occupied while Lucy catches her breath and 2 good-hearted people try and keep her alive in the interim. It's not that she doesn't appreciate it, it's just that there shouldn't be a need. Between her own self-loathing, the mind-numbing pain of overextending her hockey, and her complete lack of awareness of the world around her, it's really no surprise she doesn't even register an impending attack until she hears Rebecca cry out in warning and the sharp ring of her blade as she deflects a too powerful blow. "Princess! Geods! Run! Straw Hat!" A big man bellows, "I'm here to take your fruit." Lucy forces her eyes open, her gaze finding a blurry form before her that she can't recognize. The voice though. You work for Blackbeard," she mumbles. She feels a kernel of old rage spark inside her as she recalls the terrible man who got her brother imprisoned. "So you do remember, Straw Hat," Burgess replies. He's laughing, oddly jovial considering the situation they're currently in, especially considering the threat he poses to her. It reminds her of Blackbeard, of his laughter in hell as he taunted her on the worst day of her life. "Run, Geods, all." Rebecca is between them, and as Burgess rains a casual fist down on her head, Rebecca throws up a lightning-fast block, taking the blow bracing on one knee. The blade is aloft above her head, the hilt in one hand and the flat against her other, steel digging into soft leather. Even blurred and indistinct as Lucy's vision is, she can see how the girl's form trembles in the struggle. Rebecca is strong, Lucy knows, and she's skilled, but she's spent years determined not to attack and hurt. And Burgess has never labored under such restrictions. Lucy knows that Rebecca's no match for him, and Geods must realize the same, since he hesitates to run. Rebecca is not impressed though, and she turns over her shoulder to shout at the announcer. "For the sake of Dressrosa, Gyats, protect her." The announcer takes 1 step back, then 2, and then hesitates. "I can't leave you, Princess, I." Burgess breaks through Rebecca's block, easily, too easy, and Lucy sees a green blur fly across the street, hears the distinct thud of a body impacting rock. Rebecca," Lucy mumbles, uncertain if she should encourage Geods to listen to the gladiator, or stay to help instead. Rebecca's outclassed, Lucy knows this, and she has the horrible sensation that she's watching someone lay down on a bomb, but she's not in any shape to stop it. The gladiator stands. Lucy watches the green blur tilt and stumble, and doesn't know if it's her dizziness or Rebecca's that makes her form sway. "I suppose I don't mind killing you first," Burgess cackles, and Lucy sees the massive blur of him lunge for the gladiator. "Go, Princess." Fire fist. A spray of warmth washes over Lucy's skin, and light blinds her fragile eyes. But Lucy knows who this is. Lucy knows it in her bones. "Sabo," she calls, a grin on her face despite her exhaustion. A blur of purple and orange is between Rebecca and Burgess, and she sees the pale smear of his face turned to her over his shoulder. "You're still overdoing it, aren't you, Luchan? You always overdo it." The words are so fond, so warm and familiar, that Lucy nearly tears up. She just smiles in Sabo's general direction and gives a short, feeble nod, accompanied by a soft affirmative. Sabo gives a short laugh, and turns his attention to Burgess. "Oi. I won't let you lay a hand on Straw Hat Lucy." There's a note of pride in his voice when he calls her epithet. Burgess hesitates at this, clearly recognizing her brother, though why that might be, Lucy has no idea. And what does Sabo the revolutionary care for a lowly pirate like her? Revolutionary? Hey, wait, doesn't her dad lead? It's got nothing to do with any of that, Sabo declares, and she sees a flaming pipe swing from his back. I'm here as her older brother. There's pride and love, and so much protective wrath in his voice that it nearly takes her breath away. If she ever needs me, I swear, I'll be at her side no matter what. This last is said to her, and Lucy feels her throat tighten against the sheer joy of having him alive again. Sabo. Rebecca, he calls. The gladiator between Lucy and her brother falls into a defensive stance at Sabo's side, her sword at the ready, like she's still preparing to fight. Thank you for protecting my sister until I got here. I wouldn't have made it in time otherwise. I can help, Rebecca dismisses uncertainly. Just keep protecting her, Sabo orders cheerfully. Lucy can picture the smile on his face, handsome and charming, full of goodwill. I'll keep this one here. Rebecca hesitates a moment, and then she nods, keeping up with Gyatso as he begins to run again. You will you? Burgess says, incongruously good-natured as usual. Of course, Sabo responds cheerfully, but there's an edge of steel in his voice that speaks of danger, a thing so present and forceful that Lucy can hear it even from Gyatso's retreating arms. That's what big brothers are for. Dodge. Parry. Roll. Fall back. Rush forward to recover ground. Dodge. Dodge. Duck under opening. Parry. Slash. Roll. Fighting Doflamingo is an exercise in frustration. Zoro knows that the man is at his wit's end, that his opponent is practically non-functional at this point. It's the only thing that even kind of explains his strategy. He's not directly challenging Zoro, never even steps toward to the line, and instead sends blood-stained swaths of string at his form, turns the earth itself into a tool for his own use to keep him at bay. Zoro supposes he should take it as a compliment, that Doflamingo's too scared to get close to him. But the guy won't shut the fuck up, and keeps forcing Zoro to dodge, move, or twist in uncomfortable, awkward ways in order to avoid Doflamingo's attacks. And Zoro's bound by his own promises, too. He has to refrain from taking him out. He promised Lucy 10 minutes. It makes for an irritation-inducing fight. What frightening skill, Doflamingo purrs, and there's a thread of interest in his voice that makes the hairs on Zoro's neck stand up in disgust. You said you learned from the best earlier, you didn't mean Hawkeyes, did you? Zoro doesn't reply, is too busy performing an awkward lunge as he vaults between two spires of strain. He could cut them, sure. But the footing is untrustworthy with this man's power engaged, and if Zoro keeps himself moving, remains unpredictable, it'll be harder to catch him. Turning the earth and buildings to string seems tiring for Zoro's opponent. He only does it when he's certain Zoro is about to be somewhere specific for more than 3 seconds. Doflamingo seems to take his lack of an answer as the confirmation it is, and laughs. Don't tell me that man trained an unruly beast like you? The smile on Doflamingo's face curls further, disturbingly wide. He must not have seen in you what I do. A spike of white strawn. He crouches slightly, and uses a Hattoryu attack to clear the path to his opponent. Doflamingo backs up a few steps, wary. He has a radius he's maintaining, too afraid of Zoro to try a close-range battle. And he doesn't like to attack when he's moving. It's a flaw, but one he can unfortunately get away with because Zoro isn't aiming to kill him at the moment. But if she's late even a second, I'm running him through, Zoro promises himself darkly as Doflamingo runs his mouth yet again. Yes, you're like Law, like me. I can see it in your eyes. Doflamingo curls his fist. And two pale walls of razor blades shoot up around Zoro. He backpedals just in time to avoid being crushed between them. There's darkness inside you. A hunger for destruction. Zoro doesn't trip over the stone behind him, catches himself in time, but Doflamingo chuckles like he saw the almost fall anyway. Zoro leans on the clear resonance of Wado, balanced under his will, and takes refuge in the high ring of clarity. I wonder if Hawkeye knew, or your captain. She seems the bleeding heart type. Merciful. Kind. Doflamingo's teeth draw blood from his own lip. Pathetic, is what she is. You talk too much, Zoro complains. He jumps, and performs a Tatsumaki facing the ground to shred the string writhing where he just stood. As long as it's not directly connected to Doflamingo, Zoro's noticed, the guy can't control it. Cutting the string unfortunately only works as a temporary measure against him, because the amount of string he can make seems infinite. And his range is at least the size of the birdcage. Zoro's pretty sure he hasn't found a limit yet. Shall we see just how different you are from your captain? Shall we test it? Doflamingo asks. Zoro crouches warily, eyes narrowed over his blades. Doflamingo's smile curls deeper, crueler. His fingers twitch. Parasite string. Zoro hears a choked gasp on his left. He glances over, not taking his eyes off of Doflamingo. It's a woman. Maybe about Zoro's age, petite, and weeping so hard that Zoro isn't sure she's entirely conscious. But she keeps stepping forward, even as her feet stumble over rubble. A rock the size of a melon is clenched in her palm. Doflamingo laughs, and Zoro understands. So this is the ability that let Doflamingo gain control of the country in the first place. How cowardly. Idiot girl. She must have gotten too close to the fight. Close enough that Doflamingo could use her. How witless, Doflamingo croons, and tosses a vindictive glance to Zoro as his fingers twitch and the unfortunate woman struggles against the invisible hold propelling him. If you're anything like your captain, your mercy will overrule your logic. Doflamingo's fingers twitch, and the girl charges Zoro, swinging the rock up and over her head. She's sobbing, too afraid to even call for help. It pisses Zoro off. Do I look very merciful to you? Zoro growls, and feels Asura burgeoning underneath his skin, twisting and feeding on the darkness in his blood. Doflamingo's smile falters, and Zoro backflips over one of the writhing strings, and slams Shisui's heavy hilt into the civilian's head in one smooth move. The girl drops, passed out cold and bleeding from the temple. Doflamingo's fingers twitch, but as per usual, unconsciousness seems to frustrate devil fruit abilities, a feature for which Zoro is grateful. He does not relish the idea of dancing around a wailing, helpless civilian woman for the rest of this fight. He dislikes the idea of watching her fight against her will. Well, Doflamingo hums, and Zoro is vaguely disturbed to see something like interest flicker on his face again. That was a risk for you, wasn't it? You could have killed her, doing that. Something like a disbelieving chuckle wavers from the cruel man. You really don't have much mercy, do you? There are several things he could say to that. One being, if you think I can't control my strength, you've got no measure of me yet. Or perhaps, maybe you're just not as strong as you believe yourself to be. Or, more favorably, nothing at all. But here's the thing. Zoro wants Doflamingo to fear him. Zoro wants Doflamingo so terrorized by the very thought of his blades that he has to fight the urge to run. He wants the man to quiver and shake in his stupid curly shoes so that when Lucy comes back to deliver the final blow, it will be all he can do to remain standing. So he leans into a lunge, holds Shisui and Kitetsu parallel to each other and the earth at chest height, and lets Asura flicker in and out of sight. When he speaks his voice low and firm and unwavering. You are not the only one called demon. That horrible look of interest reappears. I suppose not. The gash of his mouth curls into a cruel grin. Does your captain know of your nature? Of the cruelty in your heart? I doubt she would approve. Zoro ignores him, dashing forward a few steps to force the man back. He keeps a healthy distance, still wary of Zoro's blades. That's good. He should be afraid of Zoro, after drawing Lucy's blood. So merciful, your captain, even to her enemies. You should have heard her earlier. She begged for Bellamy's life. A man who attacked her once, stayed her hand even as he begged to die, even when he attacked her again when freed. The name distracts Zoro for a split second, and he nearly loses his left leg because of it. He rolls back to his starting position behind the line he drew, catching his breath. Bellamy, huh? It's been a while since he's even thought of the guy. He remembers him though. Remembers what he said to Lucy. What he threatened to do to her. The near agonizing frustration at his captain's orders, his own self-loathing at understanding them. Zoro remembers nearly bisecting the guy too. He hasn't really thought of Bellamy since. You must have been a real asshole to him, if he gained Lucy's pity. Zoro retorts. He trusts Lucy's judgment. She's got a knack for these things. Doflamingo pulls back his strings, and they curl in the air above him with unsettling patience. Men like us wouldn't have shown such weakness, such frailty and indecision. Zoro raises an eyebrow as Kitetsu burns in his palm, outraged on Lucy's behalf. You're shit at reading people, man. You wouldn't have shown such mercy, Doflamingo insists. gesturing to the still form of the woman he dropped just a few moments prior. "You didn't." Zoro narrows his eyes and shifts to the balls of his feet, his haki wrapped around his blades in dark, twisting light. "I know." Doflamingo launches another attack at him, and Zoro cuts the strings at the base of the spike, impatient, and rushes forward, pressing his opponent back once more. "Maybe she does know," Doflamingo rambles, clearly thinking aloud like he's still hoping to throw Zoro off his game. He dodges deftly as Zoro lays into him with an attack pattern designed to push him back and off his toes, so he can't slip around Zoro through his blind spots. Maybe she knows and sends you to do her dirty work, so she can feel better about herself. Zoro snorts involuntarily as he leaps and spins 3 times in quick succession over a spear of razor-edged blades meant to pierce his heart. The thought of Lucy sending someone else to do her dirty work is absurd, and not only because Lucy doesn't do dirty work, so much as overturn rotting societies and overlords who have no business at the top. Given that, Zoro can see how Doflamingo might not be too fond of her. Still, even this guy should know by now that Lucy doesn't deputize the hard jobs to others. She shoulders them herself, sometimes when she shouldn't, much to Zoro's consternation. Something must show on his face, in his frame, because then Doflamingo giggles, high and demented, and his fingers twitch gleefully as his expression becomes downright jubilant, like he's genuinely taken by hilarity. "Oh," he breathes through his laughter, "so that's it, is it? The captain and her first mate?" Doflamingo chuckles darkly, and Zoro is forced to dance backward, scrambling as strings rise around him from all sides, ready to ear Zoro to shreds. "And here I thought Law was fucking her. Or wanted to. I suppose that's still a possibility though." Irritation bleeds into Zoro's stance. It's barely present, just in the shift of his weight and the tilt of his blade, but Doflamingo reads it there anyway. "Oh, does the idea of Law fucking your captain upset you? Does it make you burn with jealousy?" Doflamingo clicks his tongue. "You should have heard her on that rooftop. She was so worried about him, it was touching." Zoro draws on Kitetsu's outrage, on Wato's purpose, and Shisui's steady, infinite void. 3 minutes, Zoro says, forcing his breathing to steady. Strings clap together before him, and Zoro cuts the thick band of them apart in 2 easy slashes. "Lucy has 3 minutes to get here before I kill you myself." Doflamingo continues, relentless. "It must be stifling, working under one's partner. Does she order you around, tell you where to be and when?" Zoro rushes him, gets closer than he has before, and multicolored string bursts out from the man's fingers in a horizontal slash. "I wonder if you're a man after all." Zoro gives him a bland look, but otherwise doesn't answer. Kitetsu moans high and furious at the insult, but Zoro isn't ruled by his heart. He hasn't been for a long time. "Is that why you're simply holding the line? Because she told you not to fight? What are you, slave to her will? A dog on a chain?" Zoro, despite most people's dissenting opinion, is not stupid. He knows Doflamingo's just trying to goad him into action, trying to make Zoro give him ground. And it's not like Zoro has ever given a particular damn about what anyone else thinks, about anything. Sure, he still wants to cut him in 2, but he's wanted to do that since he saw the blood all over Lucy's body. It's not a new emotion. He's too well versed in controlling his bloodlust for that. "Wait, let me guess. It's love, isn't it? You're in love with her. We'll follow her to the ends of the earth and back, yada yada yada?" Too close, Doflamingo's suddenly too close, and Zoro dances back, trying to escape the writhing mass of string under his feet as Doflamingo convulses. The earth around him is unreliable under the man's influence, and Haki warns Zoro to move, 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 move. Love is weakness. Hasn't anyone ever told you, you humans, always trying to make your lives worthwhile, trying to find meaning? The 3-story building on Zoro's left dissolves into strain. The mass of it arcs up to the sky, blocking out the sun and the apex of the birdcage. Zoro's eye widens involuntarily, and he instinctively draws on that well inside him, pulls darkness and conviction to the fore, and feels agony and power rush through him as his body writhes into unnatural shape. "This world is hell," Doflamingo growls, "and you, like all pathetic slaves, deserve to burn." The sharp, descending spear is tipped in Haki, Zoro realizes, not blood. Of the 9 mountains and the 8 seas, Zoro recites, "There is nothing I can't cut." Zoro is a pillar immolated in motion, a moving crucible of agony and fire, but at his core there is the blank white space that breathes, and Zoro presses forward into the clash. 9 Sword Style. Demon Asura, 3000 Worlds. Zoro is darkness and wrath incarnate. Kitetsu sings in almost harmony with his soul. The closest the blade ever gets to true cooperation, the closest Zoro gets to letting it control him. String meets all 9 of Zoro's blades, haki clashing against haki as Zoro catches the strike above his head. The metallic film sparks into Zoro's eyes, glints as Doflamingo roars to the heavens in the background. Doflamingo's haki seems to weld the mass together, reducing flexibility and the independent motion of the strings in favor of a solid, relentless force. Zoro narrows 3 eyes and leans into pain, agony, fire as Asura consumes him. He does not lose himself because there is Wado to act as beacon and guide, and conviction holds him steady. Suffering is welcome on the path to bloodshed. Like fragile skin, Doflamingo's haki rips under one of Zoro's blades. Doflamingo isn't laughing anymore. Zoro teeth bare in the snarl of 3 blood-chilling grins. It's a mistake, pitting something like willpower against Zoro. He has a promise to keep, and a few lives aside from his own writing on every bet. Bloodlust that is not his own sears into his very bones, is tattooed into flesh and sinew alike. His does not back down, just moves faster even as Doflamingo roars in fury and outrage, even as the sky turns dark and the earth shakes in. Oh, shit! Zoro sees and is not in tandem. His observation haki is a wailing klaxon in his mind as 3 eyes burn holes in the pillar of black string the size of a city block, and it drives him to struggle harder, more desperately than ever. The warning is furious and brilliant and not at all helpful at the present time, because all 9 of Zoro's swords are raised above his head, locked against the most present threat, and he cannot dodge, cannot run, cannot block all of the attacks in time as 3 more spires of haki-tipped string make their way to his vulnerable torso. Zoro knows it's coming, knows what will happen before it does, and tries to extend his armament haki to protect his body as he continues to fend off the blade like string intent on blowing through his brain, but there is nothing he can do with the force of a building bearing down on him. He protects his back, bearing the whole of his torso to luck and chance because a scar on the back is a swordsman's dishonor. Zoro feels the string impale him, feels the gouging of his flesh and warm blood spill from him and down his legs as his hip and shoulder and ribcage pierce under the onslaught. And a roar rips from 3 throats as he fights to keep pushing against the inexorable force bearing down on him. There is agony within and agony without. There is chaos and there is order. Breath in the center. Zoro plants his feet. The muscles in his arms bulge, and the veins in his neck and face burn as his chest moans in strain. But Zoro leans into his strikes, hard, and the haki breaks in 9 places as Zoro leans up and into agony, accepts it unreservedly to claim both victory and pride. 9 blades blur black lightning, and the pillar of endless string falls to earth, harmless and broken. 3 heads turn to Doflamingo as Zoro's chest heaves. Blood dribbles from his mouth, runs in vermilion rivulets down his frame. Doflamingo's fingers twitch, his face terribly curious, and the 3 spikes impaling his body press deeper, score agonizing millimeters into his flesh. Zoro raises one arm, and the rest follow, blades at the ready. Doflamingo smiles, confident when he should not be. Zoro moves, his blades spinning in frenetic motion, and there is a moment where Zoro realizes that the spikes piercing him were, uncannily, holding part of his weight. As they slip to the ground, harmless after their severing, Zoro nearly follows. But he doesn't. He doesn't even allow himself to sway despite the dizziness and pain and blood loss, despite the enduring agony of Asura. Instead his teeth clench around Wado's blackened hilt, the electric sting of his haki buzzing against 3 faces, and he stares at Doflamingo from the shadows of his own bandana. He's panting, barely drawing breath, and pain is so deep that his mind has ceased to process it. He has retreated into the blank space of his core, the one that lets him breathe through the punctured lung. "You might as well die, demon of East Blue," Doflamingo calls. "He is not far away. You will die soon regardless. You will fail to even injure me, and your captain will die by my hand. The island of Dressrosa will become a sea of blood, an altar upon which the lives of its residents were sacrificed to me, their god and benevolent master. He cocks his head, as if expecting Zoro to agree. You may as well die now. Zoro curls 3 grins around 3 katana, and raises 6 more to the ready. He relishes distantly in the slack surprise in Doflamingo's face. He drawls, low and determined, the phrase that has allowed him to accept and even relish in pain since Sensei counseled it to him in a quiet garden a lifetime away from this sea. Suffering is welcome on the path to bloodshed. There's a moment where neither of them speak or move, where Doflamingo doesn't react at all. Then the man laughs, pressing a hand to his bare and bloodily bruised stomach. Blood spurts from a wound on his back, above his feathered collar, and still the towering man laughs, endlessly pleased. Oh, you are interesting, aren't you? This is why Hawkeye agreed to train you, then? The quality he admired? Zoro spits blood out of his mouth. He would have stained Watto's hilt if it hadn't been for his haki. Shisui screams the endless void in 3 fists. Zoro feels his wounds bleed more freely as his heart rate picks up in anticipation. I don't know why humans resist their own futility, Doflamingo continues, heedless of Zoro's lack of interest. You are miserable creatures. A better likeness for cattle than me and the gods of this world. Doflamingo's smile returns. Blood vessels bulging on his forehead. You will soon learn. Zoro crouches lower, readying himself. He tests his weight on his toes and finds himself mobile. Watto's voice arcs high and demanding, and the harmony of his blades reverberates through his core. Guess what? Doflamingo cocks his head, an answering question. Zoro grins, leans into bloodlust that is his and Kitetsu's and Asura's, and feels darkness weep into his presence, feels his aura implode with it like a collapsing star. Lucis late. Doflamingo takes a single step back, in fear or maybe defense, and Zoro rushes forward. Since his early days in swordsmanship, Zoro has always relied on speed and brute force. He prefers straightforward attacks to complicated combinations and especially to feints and deceptions. He's lucky, as both Sensei and Mihawk repeatedly reminded him, that such tactics favor his strengths as a swordsman. Zoro, of course, never believed it was luck. Some things are simply fate. Sensei always rolled his eyes at that one, perhaps offered an exasperated but fond smile. Mihawk said luck and fate are the same thing. These thoughts hover in the back of Zoro's mind, distant and ghost-like as he charges Doflamingo, eyes locked on his target. The earth before him ripples and Zoro jumps, flips once, and lands on a boulder the size of a small ship. His katana extends at his sides, and Asura burns in his blood, demanding violence. Doflamingo stares at him, wary, standing on the only patch of stable ground in a sea of tangled string as 6 spires rise inflexible, asynchronous threat. He is mere yards away, and Zoro has the high ground from his perch. Come to kill me? Doflamingo asks. The wariness of his stance bellies the amusement in his voice. Kitetsu wails in eager abandon. Of humanity's vermin, you might have a better shot than others. 3 moves. That's all it's going to take, the 9 mountains and the 8 seas. But humans know their weakness, deep down. That's why you all struggle and try to claw your way to power. Why you accept the ache of your necks being crushed beneath the heels of your superiors. Doflamingo raises both arms to the sky, the birdcage trembling with its contraction. Even the best of you can only bear the standards of humanity, the way a rat can only bear the excellence of a rat, and nothing more. And when I gather and cube that chiliocosm, yes, you vermin know your weakness. It is why Dressrosa bowed willingly to me. Why they will again once they are bathed in their children's blood. Once they know the cost of disobeying God. There's nothing I can't cut. Around Doflamingo's string rises an unholy vortex of razor-sharp, invisible blades. The 6 pillars tipped in haki. There is a closing gap through which Zoro can still attack. Zoro shifts slightly, and then Zoro moves, launching himself in a blur of speed and bloodlust and conviction most of all. 9 sword style, secret technique, demon Asura, the billionfold world trichiliocosm. There is lightning around and before him, energy created from his very will, and he blurs through the open gap at speeds untold. Something impales his thigh and Zoro pays it no heed. There is chaos without and a storm within, but purpose holds steady at his center, The blank space clear and resonant as water in a crystal glass. There is breath, the memory of Lucy's bloodied body, and the hundreds of razor-sharp strings curl above and around him, closing him in like a Venus flytrap. 9 blades coated with hockey spin and spark lighting, but Zoro's eyes are only for Doflamingo as he descends. The man's teeth are grit and surprise, and he crosses 2 hockey-plated arms between them to defend against his blow. Lucy's bloodied face to fuel his bloodlust, breath to calm his center. Zoro aims for Doflamingo's torso, intending to cut him in 2 from shoulder to hip. 9 blades descend on Doflamingo's body, 3,000 times at once. There is a moment of resistance, where Doflamingo's block catches against all 9 of his blades, where he succeeds in holding Zoro at bay even as the ground around them is rent in infinitesimal pieces of string and rubble, the earth shredding under the force of their exchange and the flytrap bursting open. Zoro meets Doflamingo's gaze and finds him smiling. Kitetsu screams in wounded pride and Zoro's soul answers in Asura's form. Muscles bulge and blood vessels burst and Zoro does not like this asshole. Doflamingo cries out. Blood spurts across Doflamingo's body, and Zoro presses deeper, roaring and giving voice to the agony of his form and body, and he hears Doflamingo do the same as Kitetsu severs muscle and bone and skin. Zoro is thrown back by Doflamingo's good hand. He lands on his feet but finds his leg unable to take his weight, and falls to the ground immediately. Asura flickers away in his surprise. Panting, he pushes himself up to his feet, unwilling to show the enemy his back, even when the enemy has been so thoroughly injured. He has to balance on one leg, his right thigh bleeding heavily, but he gets there. When he looks up to Doflamingo, it is to see the man holding up his right arm, staring with something too psychotic to be horror on his face at his severed wrist. The cut is clean, and it bleeds freely. Doflamingo's pink coat is frosted with red. Between them is the man's twitching, severed hand. "You," Doflamingo whispers, and there is something horrible and unstable in his voice. "You dare?" He trembles, just a little, and Zoro knows it is not from fear but from fury. Then there is a disturbing calming in his form. An unnatural shift of emotion. Don't tell me this is retribution for Law? Zoro shifts warily, testing the limits of his injured leg. I don't do revenge. He grins, and Watto's hilt tastes like metal and blood. That's what they call fate. Doflamingo grits his teeth, and the fingers of his left hand twitch. The right hand drags across the ground for a moment, before shooting up to attach to Doflamingo's wrist. Zoro raises an eyebrow as Doflamingo closes his right fist. "Well," Doflamingo says, almost conversationally, "it seems we've both earned the title, demon." Something flickers across Zoro's senses, and he prepares to fight with an anticipatory grin on his face, 3 katana at the ready. It is an unfortunate injury. It will never heal correctly without a doctor or the power of a devil fruit such as Laws or the dwarf princesses. But I can stitch the nerves together, retain some functionality. Doflamingo's voice goes sharp with rage. "Cold. I will make you suffer for it, of course. You and your captain." Doflamingo walks toward him. Slowly. Deliberately. Malice shimmers almost visibly around him. Zoro crouches low and defensive, waiting. Doflamingo is 10 paces away. 8, 6, and he'll be within Zoro's range the moment he plants his heel. But before it can happen, before he and Doflamingo can clash again, a blur of pink and green appears behind Doflamingo's right shoulder. They're eyed silver, and Doflamingo leans back in a way to escape the broadsword swinging at his face. Zoro leaps to attack at the same moment, his blades black and spitting lightning. There's a faint tugging sensation in his navel. Then he's falling, and Zoro smacks heavily into concrete, like running headfirst into a wall. He lets out a groan as his injuries suddenly make themselves known. "Sorry," a familiar voice drawls. Zoro looks up to see Trafalgar looking over a ledge, concentration furrowing his eyebrows. He looks like shit, shambles. Beside Zoro, Rebecca suddenly appears. She lands on her feet, and there's a look of vicious satisfaction on her face. Zoro suspects it has something to do with the blood edging the tip of her blade. "Thank you," Rebecca says to Trafalgar. "I needed to get him somehow." The captain says nothing, but gives an absent nod of acknowledgement as he pants. Zoro drags himself over to the ledge, returning his katana to their sheaths. Adrenaline is draining from his body fast, and his numerous injuries are making themselves known. Punctured lung. His hip. His shoulder. His leg. You dropped me on purpose, didn't you? You occasionally irritate me, Trafalgar agrees, his eyes fixed on the proceedings below. Zoro follows his gaze, and finds himself looking down at a standoff between Lucy and the heavenly demon. There's a cut on the man's right cheekbone, dribbling blood down his face. Right, Lucy says, standing where he had before. I'm gonna kick your ass. Zoro smirks, viciously proud of the way Doflamingo's hand protects his stomach instinctively at Lucy's presence. It'll be over soon, and Zoro has every faith that she will win. He glances at Trafalgar. Got enough juice to perform surgery, Toro? Trafalgar looks away from the two captains below, his expression suddenly wary. Why? I think I may need it, Zoro admits, and he just manages to catch Trafalgar's look of dawning horror as he passes out. Doflamingo was, it seems, waiting for her. This is an unfortunate fact, because Lucy is exhausted. She still fights because of course she does. It's her job, her prerogative as future pirate king. She has to fight and beat everyone who might be stronger than her, has to prove they aren't and claw her way to the top. Hitting Doflamingo comes with other bonuses, of course, but she'd be fighting regardless, was never going to back down the moment he got in her way and acted like he could make her do anything at all. Unfortunately, her fighting style requires a lot more movement and physical effort in general than Doflamingo's. So even though he's at least as bad off as she is, though, perhaps, not quite struggling with the same tinge of exhaustion that draining her hockey causes her, he initially gets the upper hand. Which, of course, is how she ended up bleeding from brand new holes in her stomach and lifted on invisible strings, made to walk toward Doflamingo against her will. Of all the man's abilities and various means of inciting chaos and injury, this is, perhaps, the one she hates the most. Lucy doesn't like being controlled. She doesn't like people trying to force her hand. What shall I do with you now? Doflamingo muses. Like this I could make you fight and kill your friends. Rebecca, maybe. You'd feel especially guilty about that, knowing she could never defend herself against you. Or perhaps Law. The two of you seem close. Doflamingo clenches his right fist, and Lucy spots blood oozing out of the cut, dragged forward and upright by her elbows. Or maybe your swordsman? I stabbed him a few times. It probably wouldn't take much to kill him. Lucy grits her teeth, struggling against the terrible sensation of inevitability and control the strings in sight as she stumbles forward, too quick to stop. Doflamingo's trying to distract her, make her angry and scared. Zoro's fine. She just saw that, can still feel him on the edge of her consciousness now. He caused Doflamingo significantly more damage than he received. She moves forward another pace, but slowly this time, resisting. Maybe I'll have you kill yourself. Instead, Doflamingo muses. That would humiliate you properly. Humble you. The demon of East Blue would be agonized. A rock is in her path. Doflamingo makes her trip over it. Or better yet, Doflamingo continues, his voice sparking with something other than dark malice, something closer to satisfaction. I could make you bow. Lucy spits, not even dignifying the words with a proper response. Come, Doflamingo demands, grinning again. Come to me and bow. Kiss my feet. I'll crush your skull when you do. Lucy's feet are bare, and she plants them in the earth, refusing point blank to move. Doflamingo's smile broadens, looking gleeful at her resistance, and the pressure to move increases tenfold, nearly bows her back. She doesn't move though. She trembles and shakes against the terrible push to move and keep moving, but she doesn't give Doflamingo a single inch more as she glares. Enough, she growls. Enough. Monkey D. Lucy doesn't fucking bow. Not to anyone or anything but her own will. Conqueror's hockey flushes through her, sets her blood on fire and rattles the stone around her. The strings controlling her limbs are suddenly looser, an annoyance rather than an imperative. Doflamingo's smile drops off his face. Lucy raises her arm to her lips and bites through her skin. Draining her hockey like she did is, as Rayleigh would say, inadvisable. Entering gear fourth again before allowing her body some rest is equally inadvisable, but she practiced enough to know it's possible. One hit. She just needs one hit. Entering gear fourth is painful on a good day. It requires melding her haki with her skin, reinforcing the rubber, and blowing air in as well to increase the weight of her blows. It burns, feels like her body's melting and freezing at once. Today she's injured, exhausted, and has already used it once. It hurts. But pain, agony even, is so much better than defeat, than being controlled. It's one and the same with Doflamingo. She's not going to let anyone else die under his thumb. He's done. The mist generated by Gear 4 fades a little, formed from the evaporated sweat on her body. She locks eyes with Doflamingo and, in an easy sweep of motion, breaks the strings he's attached to her. There's a ghost of a recognizable sensation, the rough scrape of sandpaper against skin as Doflamingo's conqueror's haki awakens. Lucy responds with a pulse of her own, one that sends sparks of lightning through the air where their wills meet. She doesn't wait for him to attack. Instead she shoots straight up, her legs churning, and lets air and earth rush past her as she climbs. The birdcage is so small now that it covers maybe a quarter of the island. There is chaos within and destruction without. Lucy swears she can hear Dressrose's screams of terror. Doflamingo follows her, because of course he does. He doesn't seem to understand he isn't winning this fight. There are spires of string as tall as the castle following Doflamingo. Each are the surferance of a man. And each are tipped in blood-black haki. Lucy curls her fists, hovering near the top of the cage. Lucy is done. Mingo, she shouts. Doflamingo chases her, smiling that terrible, not right smile. You always try to strangle everything with your hands and manipulate everybody, it makes me feel like I'm suffocating. Blame your own birthright, he replies. You all, who were born as trash, are only fit to be manipulated. You humans and I are different. I give you meaning. Shut up, I'll kick your ass, do your worst, girl. Doflamingo raises the spiderweb shield, and Lucy knows, just knows, that Kong gun is simply not enough. It's fine. She's prepared for this. Lucy doesn't take her eyes off of her target, doesn't dare look away with her haki so strained, but she turns into her shoulder and bites the muscle there. She doesn't even feel the usual agony of engaging this technique, too high on endorphins and the righteous fire of her haki in her own soul, demanding nothing. The right arm swells to twice its normal size, and Lucy cocks it back, her spine trembling in unfelt strain. Doflamingo smiles, his strings writhing in anticipation around him. Lucy can only think of a few people she's wanted to punch more than this one. She dives, her whole body locked on her target as she rushes him. Doflamingo's fingers twitch and the spires of thread gather in his palms. King Kong gun, 16 holy bullets, God thread. There is something that Lucy can only call collision, something devastating and heavy and brutal. Her arm is nearly numb, but she feels the pressure of Doflamingo's attack against her knuckles, the twisting, burrowing motion of a parasite. She feels the shockwave, feels the reverberations in her chest, and she pushes forward, forward, forward. Lightning flashes around them as their haki clashes. It's brighter than the sun, and the sparks leave shadows in her vision, too many to count, until she is nearly blind with afterimages. It doesn't deter her. On the contrary, it just makes her push harder, harder, harder. She's screaming, or maybe roaring, giving voice to the struggle. The threads are sharp and painful against her knuckles, even without piercing her haki, and she pushes down and into them with everything she has. But over the roaring in her ears, the challenging cry ripping from her own throat, and the sharp cracks of thunder from the storm around them, she hears something else, too. Doflamingo speaks, and he sounds gleeful, determined, and all too certain. I'll destroy everything. Straw Hat. I am a god. The world should bow to my will. Trash should be so lucky to die by my hand. The pressure increases more, and then his haki pierces hers. Shit. No, her legs churn and she presses forward, harder, drains everything inside her in order to move, even as the strings splinter bone, separate muscle from tendons and... Don't you get it? She roars, and the inexhaustible fire of her conqueror's haki flares up her spine again, drowns out everything else. The pain isn't felt, exhaustion doesn't exist, and Lucy will not be overcome. You're not a god, you're not even a man, you're just pathetic. One final push. One last clash and, take a fucking hint. The spiderweb shield breaks, splintering in 100 pieces of silvery filament around them, and the hockey-tipped spires fall away from Lucy's fist. Limp, and Lucy plants her fist in Doflamingo's face. She feels the earth shake, sees the island rise and reject the man who tormented it, and then Lucy wins. She blacks out before she can think to fall. Zoro rises to consciousness and groans immediately because fuck, he fucking hurts. Why? You're a goddamn idiot, a voice on his left grumbles. Zoro pries his eyes open and tries to turn his head. He immediately regrets it, and moves to massage the tension from his neck, and winces as his shoulders move. He's propped against a wall, and as his knuckles scrape the brick, he decides it's simply easiest to give up on making himself comfortable. On his left, Law is crouched over the edge of the roof, not even looking at him. His eyes are locked on the sky above. How am I fucking awake right now? He questions blearily, having a vague understanding of how much blood he's lost and a questionably intimate knowledge of how much blood loss equates to loss of consciousness. Instinctively he reaches out, trying to locate his crew. Usopp is running around somewhere below. Robin too. Frankie is by the somewhat mobile Smile Factory. Lucy. Oh, so that's why Law's staring at the sky. I'm a good surgeon and you're too dumb to stay unconscious, Law replies. He's gripping his side protectively and his hand shakes a little as it grips his blade. He looks exhausted, but his gaze is fixed with rapt attention on Lucy and Doflamingo's fight. Zoro agrees that it's probably the most interesting thing happening at the moment, and follows his cue just in time to see the sky turn dark and lightning flash as trumpets blare against his senses. He winces, clutching his head, and grimaces against the feeling of Lucy and Doflamingo's hockey clashing. They're both exhausted, at the end of their ropes, and they sound more like a never-ending train crash than anything. But then there's a cracking, a breaking of will, a riptide, and then Lucy's voice carries like a gunshot over the island as she rages at Doflamingo to take a fucking hint. Rebecca falls to her knees in front of him, collapsing but not sucking under the weight of Lucy's unrestrained will, and Zoro watches as Doflamingo slams down to earth with such speed and weight that Zoro can't follow him with his eyes, and feels the island tremble upon his impact with the earth. The force is so great that two great plates of cityscape in stone tilt up and frame the sky as Doflamingo is buried deep in the heart of the island, as he's forced from light and freedom and sky and veritably buried as the earth collapses on top of Dressrosa's greatest tormentor. It looks unreal. Otherworldly. Absurd. It's exactly the kind of thing Lucy pulls out of her ass regularly. The sworn enemies of the gods, huh? Law mutters, and Zoro doesn't really register it because Lucy, he says urgently, struggling upward, trying to get to his feet and generally failing. She's falling. She's falling, her body shifted out of her new, medically inadvisable form, and she's not moving, not even conscious if Zoro's senses are anything to go by. Law swears and holds out a trembling hand, one eye squinting against exhaustion. Get ready, he orders, and a purple ball forms around Lucy's form for the blink of an eye before she's flung violently and quickly in their general direction, like someone shot her out of a cannon. Zoro frowns, not taking his eyes off his captain. She's closer now, her body clearly limp and steam and blood still billows off of her. What are you? Law grunts, a sound somewhere between a whimper and a groan, and another room appears around Lucy's descending frame, this one including their destroyed rooftop as well. Catch, Law orders, voice strained, and Lucy appears about 5 feet above Zoro's head before the purple film disappears and Lucy's falling again, dropping down right before him. Fuck, Zoro yelps, and he gets to his knees just in time to have Lucy slam into him, somehow crashing more into his abused chest than anything. He falls back, his head cracking against the crumbling wall and his ankle twisted painfully underneath him, but he manages to curl his arms underneath Lucy's knees and shoulders, and manages to protect her head. Zoro lets out a slow breath, Lucy's head lolling on his shoulder as he glares at Law. Oi, he protests, demanding an explanation from the guy who just played hot potato with his girlfriend. Teleporting's hard, Law groans, clutching his side and wheezing slightly. Aim's difficult. Played it safe. He looks up just enough to glare from under the brim of his hat, nearly petulant. Someone needed emergency medical care. Zoro accepts the explanation, ignores the accusation, and studies Lucy instead. The shirt's been ripped open, so only the leather band covers her torso. There's blood smeared across her skin, caked and dried and sourced from multiple wounds. A deep cut in her hip is still weeping, shiny with black-red liquid, and a dozen bullet holes decorate her torso. Her face is bruised and bloody, and her breath sounds labored, her mouth hanging open for air because her nose is too swollen to breathe through. He can feel her heartbeat under his palms though, thudding loud and steady, and her voice rings in satisfaction and contentment, no echo of danger or warning present. She needs a doctor. Preferably not one about to pass out, like Law, but he's pretty sure she's not going to die anytime soon, either. Zoro shifts back, wriggling his legs out from under him. He's used to the Caesar pose, sure, but frankly his thigh is still killing him, despite being stitched up by Law, and holding Lucy isn't helping that much, so he's going to slump his legs splayed out just this once. He mentally apologizes to Sensei, clutching Lucy a bit closer, and her forehead slips to his collarbone. He supposes he could put Lucy down. That's probably what Law was expecting, but, nah. He's fine like this, even if her elbow is poking a possibly bruised but probably not broken rib. This is some fucking date, Zoro mumbles absently, to no one in particular. He's not really expecting anyone to answer. He smirks. And the love cook said I don't woo. I hate you, Law groans, the thumb and forefinger pinching his temples together, like he's trying to relieve a headache. I hate you so much. Zoro just grins and closes his eyes, preparing to settle in until the rest of the crew shows up. Lucy is fine, tucked safely against him, and the birdcage above their heads is gone. Evaporated with Doflamingo's will, and all of Dressrosa roars in joy and tearful abandon around them. But then the breath against his chest changes, a tiny hitch, and Zoro blinks awake just as Lucy's tired voice croaks, "Zero?" Zoro shifts a little, trying to look down at her face without jostling her too much. She hasn't even opened her eyes, is apparently too tired to do so, and the only sign that she's awake is the tiny furrow between her eyebrows and the slight pout in her lips. She's looking for confirmation, needs to know she did it. "You ruined my shirt," he greets, his hand fisting in the back of his old garment. The buttons have popped off, and half of it is gone by now, torn away by various attacks or maybe Lucy herself, if she got annoyed with it. The rest is soaked black with blood, maybe Lucy's, maybe not, and either way it's not something that could ever be used as a shirt again. Lucy's face relaxes, and her lips quirk into a tired smile, taking the flippant response for the answer it was. Knew he was a f***ing pissant. Zoro snorts and settles back against the wall. Lucy sighs contently and drools a little on his collar as she drops off into unconsciousness, her hand buried in his haramaki. Zoro tries to follow her into slumber, but a soft oh of surprise has him cracking his eyes open. It's Rebecca. Her red-hued eyes are fixed on a green branch she's holding before her, clasped gently between her fingers. Her eyes water, and she clasps a gloved hand over her wobbling chin. "What's wrong?" demands Law, beating Zoro to the punch. Rebecca looks away from the branch, her eyes dangerously shiny as they lock on the three pirates. "And nothing's wrong," she stutters, and there's a dreadful sort of joy on her face that is almost too intense to witness. It feels private. Personal. It's just, my mother was a flower interpreter. She taught me a few things. Rebecca presents the branch to her audience. It's a palm frond. The smile on her face is blinding. The rapture somehow only enhanced by her obvious grief. It means victory. Ah, Zoro thinks, numb exhaustion filling him. Sounds about right. Then he falls asleep, Lucy pressed safely against his shoulder as allies celebrate in the streets below. The stars in the New World, Zoro decides, are weird. It's not like he's an expert or anything, but honestly there's usually not much to do on watch, so he ends up stargazing a lot. In the New World, the stars seem brighter, absolutely brilliant as they glare down on the world below like roughly cut diamonds. Maybe there are simply fewer cities on this half of the Grand Line. Maybe it's just some weird moon thing, like Robin and Nami sometimes rant about, but the stars seem harsher here. Zoro doesn't mind. There's probably a metaphor in there about journeys and destinations, but Zoro isn't one to think about that kind of shit and frankly just appreciates that the increased light makes being a lookout easier at night. Not that he's using his eyes so much as other senses. In the cabin it's dark and silent. His friend's slow, peaceful breathing fills the room, the only one in Cairo's home. The bed is occupied by Lucy and Robin, the two of them lying nose to toes to maximize space on the narrow mattress. Neither of them could lay on their sides, due to injuries. Frankie snores on top of a table, while Law, Usopp, the Samurai's, Bellamy. Law insisted, claimed Lucy would want him around, and the gladiator occupy the floor. Zoro himself is curled in the windowsill as he keeps watch, feeling bizarrely awake in the quiet hours after midnight. That's what he gets for sleeping almost 20 hours straight, he supposes. His wounds still ache, but rest helped, and he's using watch to meditate now. Sensei would probably be long-sufferingly exasperated at the frequency he's used those techniques since leaving home. Zoro bets he'd be impressed at how good he's gotten at it though. It doesn't smell fantastic in the cabin. They've all at least had their wounds dressed, but Dressrosa is not currently in possession of an abundance of showers. Or running water in general. Most everyone is homeless, and anyone who had any money is now destitute. The waterways are now clogged with debris. Half the population were slaves for varying lengths of time, so there's that trauma to deal with. Entire sections of their culture and heritage have been rediscovered, with the return of their artisans. The Marines are helping the people here. They've set up infirmaries and latrines and cannibalized their own ships and facilities for Dressrosa's use. That's what the Tontatas have said at least. One of the little creatures drops by every couple hours to give them an update, and also check up on Usopp and Frankie and Robin. They peek curiously at Lucy, and to a lesser extent, himself and the rest of their nakama as well. They somehow seem more awed by Lucy every time they drop by, which is a little odd, to be honest. Zoro wonders what they've heard about her, or if maybe they just can't believe Doflamingo's gone for good. Asshole sure left a lot of devastation in his wake. Zoro's not exactly the type to dwell on shit, but he does wonder, absently, if they'll dig a mass grave, or bury each body individually. Maybe they cremate people on Dressrosa. He hopes that Admiral remembered the kid in the street. Lucy makes a soft noise in her sleep. The moon cuts a swath across her body, and her lips are turned up in a slight, barely perceptible smile. The bed is pushed against the wall, so it's easy to reach down and gently sweep the hair from her face. The strands are a little oily from going unwashed too long. Lucy turns into his hand, just a little. His fingers graze the aged scar under her eye. She looks peaceful like this, with the moon throwing shadows across her face. He's seen her asleep before, but she doesn't look so calm, normally. Lucy's always moving, somehow, with her fingers twitching or her hair blowing in the wind, or snoring. She's not doing any of that now. It betrays just how exhausted she made herself. He can't see her wounds at the moment. She's swamped by his jacket because, apparently, his shirt was the one with the fewest bloodstains on it, and Lucy wouldn't stop shivering earlier. Underneath the open jacket, she's wrapped in bandages. The newer ones haven't been bleeding through quickly, according to Frankie. They're still supposed to change them every few hours, to avoid infection. The hospital was destroyed, and the Marines are, apparently, quickly running out of antibiotics. Zoro withdraws his hand, and settles against the window frame, vaguely bored. He supposes he could doze a little while keeping his vigil, but with his injuries he might actually fall asleep, and then he'd be useless as a watchman. He could count the number of bonfires in the city below, or the number of giant boulders ringing the island, or someone's out there. Zoro tenses, casting his senses out. The stranger is skilled. The presence is slippery, like oil on asphalt, used to slipping into cracks to obscure his presence, only truly visible with light from the right angles. Zoro noticed because his eyes caught his shadow, not because his haki warned him. That's disquieting. Zoro's not great at observation haki, but he's not terrible. He misses details sometimes, sure, but usually not entire people. As quickly as can without tipping the other guy off, Zoro conceals his own presence. He's got no idea what the stranger's skill level is, but it can't hurt to be careful. No one can be completely invisible from haki, and some people burn brighter and more brilliantly than others, easily identifiable to friends and enemies alike. Some are naturally obscure, protected by intruding eyes by their own characters. It's impossible to hide completely from the competent, no matter how subtle a person naturally is, but it's possible to mask oneself a little. The key, Mihawk repeated ad nauseum, was to think of everything at once and nothing specific. It makes getting a read on someone's intentions difficult, if not impossible. Zoro's never been very good at it. The hawk is frustratingly very adept at the skill. Still, he masks himself as best he's able, trying to at least make sure the other guy doesn't know Zoro's noticed him. Silently, to avoid tipping him off, Zoro moves to the door, keeping track of the stranger with his haki. Even knowing he's out there, even with a sense of where he is, it's hard to keep track. He's moving to the house though, to the back, actually. The wall opposite the door. Weird. The path up the hill leads directly to the other side. It's a miracle the old, dried and half-rotted floorboards don't creak beneath his boots. He's careful, very careful, to step on the nails so the boards don't bend, but only luck keeps the air silent as he weaves around the bodies on the floor, trying to recall all the subjects Robin has doctoral-level expertise in while also trying to remember each sword he's ever broken and exactly how it happened. When he gets to the door, Zoro twists the doorknob slowly, carefully, willing himself to patience. Patience isn't his strong suit. It's why stealth is more the cook's thing than his. The doorknob clicks softly. Zoro releases a slow breath and pulls the door open, just wide enough to slip through without brushing the doorframe. To his relief, the hinges open silently, despite the years of neglect the house suffered. It must have been well built, Zoro considers idly. He should compliment Kairos on it later. The door shuts behind him with a muffled click. The presence is still at the back of the house, but he's coming around to the front now. On Zoro's right. He would have passed Zoro in the window, had the swordsman stayed there. He could rush him now, use the precious seconds to preempt him in an attack. He could climb up to the roof, get the literal drop on the guy when he goes to open the door. He could hide around the opposite corner, jump him as he tries to get inside. Zoro steps to the left of the door and leans against the rough-hewn wall, his body obscured by pitch-black shadow even in the moonlight. He loosens Kitetsu in the red sheath, and waits. A shadow turns the corner, his silhouette illuminated by the moonlight. He wears a top hat and a long coat, maybe Zoro's height, maybe a little lazy, purposeful stride that speaks of battle training. He draws closer, and Zoro tries to recall the steps to tying an anchor hitch knot, a skill he's long since relegated to muscle memory. He tries, too, to recall other things he's relegated to muscle memory, as well as the rate at which his debt to Nami grows. The figure draws closer, seemingly oblivious to Zoro's presence. He stops at the door, hesitates. Zoro forces himself not to draw just yet. The man takes a deep breath and reaches for the doorknob. Zoro's draw is so quick and smooth Kitetsu doesn't make a sound, not even a whisper as the sword scrapes against the sheath. The movement is simple, just a quick extension of his arm as Kitetsu sings. His back is still against the wall. The stranger stands frozen on his right. The blade hovers barely a centimeter from the intruder's neck, the fine edge of the steel sharp enough to rip the fragile skin of the man's throat with minimal effort. A child would be capable of exerting enough strength to kill him from this position. The light is weak, especially with the shadow of the house swallowing all the moonlight, but Zoro catches the gleam of the stranger's eyes as they slide to him. Pirate hunter Rorinoa Zoro, I presume. The voice is young, confident and smooth, maybe his age. The hand has not moved away from the doorknob. What do you want? Zoro replies. Kitetsu wails in his head, furious at the scant distance between the edge of the blade and fresh blood. To see the conquering hero, of course. There's something sardonic and testing in the stranger's voice. Or heroine, as the case may be. Zoro feels Kitetsu gnaw on his will at that, just a little harder than before. He narrows his eyes, back up. The stranger doesn't move. His left hand is free, obscured by the night. Zoro looks him in the eye, promising bloodshed if the man didn't comply. Aren't you going to ask who I am? The stranger asks, his voice light. Where I come from, why I want to see her. I don't care, Zoro growls. The back of Kitetsu's blade tilts up into the man's jaw in warning, the edge no further from that fragile barrier than before. Back up, now. The man doesn't move. He just continues to hold Zoro's gaze, and the air strains thick with tension. Zoro twitches the fingers of his free hand, preparing to draw another blade if he somehow escapes decapitation. The goggles on the brim of his top hat reflect the moonlight. drawing Zoro's gaze upward for just a moment. The stranger moves. Zoro can't see it in the dark, but his haki blares warnings in his mind and he leans hard into a cutting strike with Kitetsu, raises Shisui half out of the sheath to catch the attack to his chest on the flat of the blade, and the door opens and light floods the doorstep. Both Zoro and the intruder freeze mid-motion. "Sabo?" Robin asks, drawing the fluffy white coat around her like a robe. "Zoro? What are you two doing?" Kitetsu is literally pressed against the stranger's throat, the guy only saved by his quick and minimally used armament. His left hand, tense in a shape like a claw, is barely an inch away from impacting Shisui's blade. "You know him?" Zoro asks, still unwilling to look away from the maybe not an enemy after all. Blue eyes meet his gaze beneath a curly blonde fringe of hair. A scar mottles the left side of his face. "Yes," Robin replies, sounding vaguely pleased. "He's Lucy's brother. We met while I was with the revolutionaries." Zoro gapes a little, his eyes widening. "You're her brother?" Instinct compels him to hold his position against an attacker who hasn't withdrawn, but he beats it back and pulls Kitetsu away from Sabo's neck. Shisui, however, remains in defensive resolve, and he doesn't return either katana to their sheath. "She mentioned you." The blonde retracts his claw, the black film of haki dissolving against his neck. He doesn't drop Zoro's gaze though. Zoro gets the feeling he's being tested, and his gaze narrows again, ever so slightly. It's different now than it was with Ace. Or it feels that way, at least. Ace hadn't been AWOL for a decade when he met the guy in Alabasta. He hadn't known Lucy as well then either. Ace showing up didn't make Lucy cry. It's this guy who needs to pass Zoro's test. Brotherly instincts be damned. He doesn't get to abandon Lucy for who knows how long and then pretend like nothing happened. Not after Ace died. He doesn't get to screw with her head like that. "Sabo?" Robin asks again, and the man's gaze finally turns to the tall woman. The blonde's gaze turns instantly warm. Zoro doesn't trust it. "Robin," he greets. He's smiling, showing off a set of pearly teeth and a dimple in his left cheek. "Come in," Robin offers, sending a quick, questioning glance to Zoro when his fist tightens on his katana. It's a small, nearly unconscious check-in. Robin doesn't understand the quick animosity between them. Knows them both separately as their friends. She interrupted what Zoro is not too proud to call a pissing match, and she's confused, but she'd be willing to rescind the invitation if he ordered it. Zoro doesn't want to let him in. Something dark and protective in his chest rails against it, set off by this stranger acquaintance's suspicious behavior, his sudden, upsetting presence in Lucy's life. But Robin loves Lucy too, and she knows Sabo. She'd never let him anywhere near Lucy if she thought he was bad news. Zoro's willing to trust her judgment. For now. He returns his blades to their sheaths, and Robin steps aside at the reluctant gesture of agreement, a hint of confusion still present in her eyes. Sabo enters the little house first. Zoro reluctantly admires the guy's willingness to allow such a recent enemy at his back. It's ballsy. Inside, only Frankie and Usopp are awake. Two of the kerosene lamps are lit. Robin's disembodied hands hold them at strategic angles to keep their sleeping friends' faces in the shadows. Usopp noticed something, and woke Frankie and I. Robin shrugs. "Lucy and everyone else are still asleep, but I can." "No," Sabo interrupts. He's already across the room, at the foot of the bed. Lucy has always been opportunistic, and she's already flopped onto her back and has an arm splayed across the space Robin's body just vacated. "No, just let her sleep." Zoro leans into the juncture between the bed and the wall, near Lucy's head. "She'd want to see you." Sabo doesn't look away from Lucy's face, but Zoro sees a flash of annoyance cross it before being replaced by something complicated. "No," he repeats softly. "She's injured. Got hurt protecting all these people." A smile creases his face, and Zoro is horrified to see something like tears gleam in his eyes. "She should rest. Heal." A gloved hand reaches out to pull the blanket up a little more, but he pulls back at the last moment. Zoro narrows his eyes again. He knows guilt when he sees it. He especially knows second-hand guilt, the type that comes with accidentally screwing up, the type that happens when a friend loses something and one finds oneself helpless to protect that friend from the realities of the world. It's guilt magnified by the knowledge that one has somehow failed to live up to one's duties, despite one's best efforts. Zoro spent 2 years working off his own guilt, for failing his captain and the girl he loves. He imagines failing both a brother and a sister would be at least as bad. Regardless, he can't help but think Sabo's being more selfish than selfless, at the moment. Lucy would want to see him. She'll be disappointed if she wakes up and realizes Sabo left without a goodbye. Normally, Zoro would tell Sabo that it's too important to his girlfriend for him to just ignore it. Let Sabo make his mistakes. But the blonde hasn't looked away from Lucy yet, hasn't even blinked, and Zoro thinks this might be more complicated than he knows. He's not exactly sure how a long-lost brother coming back from the dead after a decade of absence could get more complicated, but with Lucy, anything's possible. Her face is kind, still, Sabo says. His voice quiet, and Zoro is certain he is not meant to hear. Not when there's so much affection and frank adoration in the man's voice. I wondered if it would be, after. There's an awkward pause. Frankie coughs lightly. So, you and Robin met in the Revolutionary Army? Usopp asks, curiosity lighting his eyes. Zoro can relate to that. Zoro's been wondering what Robin did those 2 years as well. Yep, Sabo replies. He tears his gaze away from Lucy to look at the sniper, but even Zoro, who is not a particularly adept reader of body language, can tell where his attention still lies. I introduced myself as Lucy's brother, and we became friends. Zoro shoots Robin a questioning glance. Not accusing though, because Robin's loyalty to Lucy is unquestionable. Robin catches the look and sighs softly. He asked me not to tell her, said he had to do it himself. Thank you for keeping it quiet, Sabo tells her. His eyes are suspiciously shiny as he looks at the archaeologist. There were things I needed to tell her. Zoro remembers the way she sobbed outside the arena, and resents Sabo a little for springing it on her like that and making Lucy such a wreck. He wants to ask for an explanation, on Lucy's behalf. But he wants Sabo to offer one, too. Wants him to prove himself worthy of the hold he has on her. I'm afraid I'll have to head out pretty soon, Sabo says to the room at large. We took some sensitive items from the warehouses. Don't want to risk CP0 getting their hands on them. CP0? Usopp squeaks. A little loud considering the number of still unconscious people in the cabin. Like CP9, the people who tried to take Frankie and… Yes, Sabo interrupts. His calm makes Usopp look a little embarrassed. They helped Doflamingo fool the world in thinking he renounced his Shichibukai title. Sabo gives a slightly exasperated smirk to the ceiling. We were keeping an eye on them, but they were doing the same to us. Like 2 outposts guarding an empty valley. He shakes himself a little. The items we took are valuable. There will be lots of people flooding the island in a few days, looking for them. And you? He looks to Robin, a little earnestness in his voice. You guys should leave as soon as you can. Zoro tamps down a bristle of irritation. He doesn't like the guy telling them what to do. He doesn't like that he addressed Robin, rather than him, Lucy's first mate, which is weird because he doesn't usually have issues with rank like that. He doesn't like the implication that they can't protect their unconscious captain without his help. Sabo probably didn't mean to prick at Zoro's pride, though. And he's Lucy's brother. Not being actively hunted is a pretty good state of affairs for her. A little neuroticism is probably to be expected when it comes to her general safety, even if he hasn't quite earned it yet. It's not his opinion that ultimately counts when it comes to Sabo, of course, but Zoro can't help forming one. And he plans to tell Lucy if he thinks Sabo is bad news. We won't stay long, Zoro admits. The others turn their attention to him. Lucy'll want to meet up with the others. The Straw Hats nod in collective agreement. Sabo's expression doesn't change, but it suddenly seems icier than before. You know my sister well. The air in the room tenses. Zoro holds Sabo's gaze, unwilling to back down. The words are innocuous, but they're said with a strange sort of resentment filtering through the edges. The room seems to burn a little hotter, crackling with electricity and potential. Between them, Lucy shifts a little, her right hand closing in a fist and opening again. Zoro doesn't look away from Sabo. His relationship with Lucy is, as far as Zoro's concerned, not relevant to Sabo. Or anyone else but the two of them, for that matter. He doesn't care who shows up. Frankie takes out a screwdriver and sticks it in his half-melted face. We had to split the crew up. Aneki isn't a fan when that happens. Sabo looks away from Zoro, his eyes swinging down to Lucy's face. I see. Then he seems to relax a little, a soft smile on his face as he studies Lucy's. She's a good captain then. The best, all four of the Straw Hats reply. There's a beat where they all look at each other in surprise before Robin laughs softly, and Frankie has to clap a hand over his mouth to avoid making too much noise. Zoro cracks a smile, looking down at Lucy. Fondness bursts in his chest, and he knows he doesn't quite manage to keep it from his face when he looks up to see Sabo staring at him, his brows knitted together. Ah, screw it, this guy isn't being very forthcoming at all. And Zoro has no desire to tell Lucy her brother decided to fuck off for another 10 years without an explanation. She never mentioned she had another brother, Zoro says to the room at large. He's not a subtle guy. He prefers the direct approach. But he tries to keep the accusation from his voice, for Lucy's sake. Sabo relaxes slowly as Frankie voices a muffled agreement from the other side of the room. There's something sad and wistful in his face. No, Sabo agrees. He pulls the blanket up over Lucy, tucking her in just a little tighter. Zoro resists the urge to draw Kitetsu and slice his hand off at the wrist. No, I suppose she wouldn't have mentioned me. He smiles, and it looks a little forced this time. She thought I died 12 years ago. The other Straw Hats react in shock. Zoro looks down to the floorboards. That much he knows from Lucy's confused babbling earlier. He wants to know why he let her think that. There was an incident, Sabo explains. I was running away from my birth parents, who were trying to force me into elite society. Sabo gives a proud kind of smirk. Ace and Lucy and I weren't exactly cut from that kind of cloth. I didn't want to live anywhere they couldn't be. He shrugs. Anyway, the incident made the papers, which is how they found out. I was grievously injured, presumed dead. When I woke up, I had near total amnesia. I didn't remember anything about myself, or who I loved. Just that I didn't want to go back to Goa. Frankie, Zoro notices, already looks teary-eyed. Dragon found me after the incident, somehow. Sabo shrugs. I had nowhere to go, but the Revolutionary Army took me in. I officially joined the ranks a few years later. But you regained your memory, Usopp points out. He has that shrewd expression on his face he gets when he's trying to interrogate someone. Sabo's face spasms with pain. The day after the war, there was a picture of Ace in the newspaper. Sabo's fists clench, and his mouth sets in a grimace. Payback of a kind, I guess. I remembered everything when I saw that. Zoro closes his eyes, bowing his head in acknowledgement of the other man's pain. He can imagine that such an experience would be a shock, to put it mildly. I think Ace helped me. I think he wanted to make sure I knew to look after Lucy. Honestly, Zoro wouldn't put it past Ace. He remembers the guy in Alabasta, how protective he was. If he couldn't be around, it doesn't surprise Zoro that his spirit would cling to Sabo. Zoro doesn't believe in the afterlife, of course, but he doesn't doubt that Lucy's brother would be stubborn enough to avoid departing this world completely. Oi! What are you doing over there? Usopp screeches. Zoro looks over to see Kinemon and Kanjuro in the corner, clearly awake. Kinemon seems to be chowing down on the dried meat, and also guzzling sake. Don't waste all the booze, Zoro growls. Kinemon just shovels another slice of meat in his face. Lucy will want meat when she wakes up, Robin comments uncertainly. Aneki eats disturbing amounts of meat, Frankie agrees. We'll get food in the morning, Kanjuro pacifies. And booze, Zoro demands pointedly. Robin giggles. Lucy shifts in her sleep, her mouth curled in a smile. Lucy has a good crew, I see, Sabo comments. The look on his face is equal parts proud and humored, mixed with a strange sort of wistfulness. Zoro doesn't know what having a sibling is like, but he can guess Sabo's currently wishing Ikade of her life. Anyway, I came here both for the fruit, and to meet up with Lucy again. We met in the arena. I'm afraid we were short on time, though, so we couldn't spend as much time together as we might have wanted. He tugs on the brim of his hat. Lucy's grown a lot. I couldn't believe it when I saw her. What was Lucy like as a kid? Usopp asks curiously. Frankie and the two samurai look on with interest. Sabo smirks. Oh, nothing like she is now. Total crybaby weakling. Sabo's expression morphs to something vaguely rueful. Suicidally proud, too. He looks a little embarrassed. Ace and I probably shouldn't have teased her so much. We weren't very good role models. He scratches the back of his neck. Never expected her to go after the giant gator alone, though. Zoro snorts at the mental image of a 7-year-old Lucy trying to take down an alligator and tripping into the water immediately. Robin giggles. Usopp expresses his doubt over Lucy ever being a weakling. Well, I better be going, Sabo says after a moment. He claps his hands to his knees and looks at Lucy's face for a long moment before standing. Then Sabo looks at him, direct and in silent request, and Zoro moves to follow him out the door. I'm going back to bed, Frankie declares. Usopp nods in agreement. I think I will as well, Robin chimes in. Roll Lucy over when you do, Zoro tells her. She hates sleeping on her back, Sabo finishes. The look he's giving Zoro is hard to decipher. Zoro's fairly certain he sees protective brotherly instincts warring with something like relief, and a lot of other emotions. I'll do that, Robin assures them. Sabo moves to the door, and Zoro follows him out. The floorboards creak beneath their feet this time, and Zoro is glad the rest of the people in the cabin are either heavy sleepers or too exhausted to be disturbed. Zoro shuts the door behind him. He can see a square of light from the window around the corner that, tellingly, indicates the occupants inside are not bedding down just yet. The night air is cool. Refreshing, outside of the stuffy cabin. Sabo waits for him about 10 paces from the door. You know, I'd forgotten that, until just now, Sabo says evenly. Zoro raises an eyebrow. That she hates sleeping on her back. Sometimes those things slip my mind. Sabo's mouth twists with distaste. Sometimes that happens, where I remember something new. I think I have all the big stuff locked down, consolidated, as the doctors like to say, but the little stuff, Sabo shrugs. Who knows? It could just be normal memory decay. It could be amnesia. Zoro says nothing. Not being able to trust his own mind is one of the few things, he thinks, that could really scare him. I remember why she hates sleeping on her back though, Sabo continues. He sends Zoro an embarrassed glance. Ace and I may have told her giant snakes eat 7-year-old girls who don't sleep on their stomachs. He huffs a small laugh. We were really sick of her snoring. Zoro grins, fond in spite of himself. Lucy is nothing if not noisy when she sleeps. Without thinking, he replies, fair enough. Sabo's eyes shoot to Zoro, contemplative. And, shit, Zoro just implied a level of intimacy several magnitudes higher than he maybe should have. You're my sister's first mate, right? The blonde asks good-naturedly. His gloved hand tugs at the brim of his hat. Zoro nods, his hands resting easily at his sides. Is that all? Sabo asks. His voice is low and even, maybe a few notches shy of dangerous. Zoro snaps his gaze to Sabo's. He doesn't reply. Sabo sighs. Thought so. Here. Sabo pulls a piece of paper out from a pocket in his jacket and hands it to Zoro. It's a Vivre card for her. Had it made from the hairs in her helmet. He rips off a corner and stuffs it into the same pocket. Zoro nods and folds the card down, sticking it in his haramaki. He's unprepared when Sabo's hand snaps out, trapping Zoro's wrist between his fingers. Zoro looks up at him calmly, even though he resents being detained in such a way. Sabo doesn't seem interested in violence. Well, not anymore, at any rate. Look, I know I'm about 12 years too late to give you a shovel talk, and I can tell you guys love her, so. He breathes out slowly. Just take care of her, please. I can't lose her too. Sabo's not looking at him. His gaze is pointed to the soil beneath their feet, to the cheerful sunflowers muted in the dark. Zoro thinks this might be the closest the guy comes to bowing. Zoro feels something in his chest soften in sympathy, despite himself, always. He doesn't exactly trust Sabo. It's hard to trust someone who doesn't seem to trust themselves. Who seems so uncertain of the bounds of his authority. But he trusts that Sabo loves Lucy. That he's going to do everything in his power to protect her, that he'd never intentionally hurt her. He'd never trust him the way Sabo's trusting Zoro. But he doesn't need to. Won't ever need to, because his destiny is to walk beside Lucy, make her pirate king. Sabo's grip on Zoro's wrist relaxes, and he breathes out, slow and purposeful. Thank you. Zoro nods, feeling awkward. He's not good with people. And Sabo seems a lot more emotive than Ace, and even Lucy, in some ways. Lucy might be a bit much for you to handle, Sabo says fondly, turning to leave, but I leave her in your care. And there's something about the way he says it, and the heavy gaze, that makes Zoro think Sabo is referring, in particular, to him, and his care. Zoro kind of wants to be annoyed, because he's pretty sure neither he nor Lucy need Sabo's permission to do anything, brother or not. But, he supposes, any brother in Sabo's position would be anxious about leaving his sister alone. Hell, one of Lucy's brothers already made that farewell. So Zoro snorts, amused. Sabo turns to him, eyes questioning. Ace said the same thing, you know. Sabo's eyes widen. When we met him in Alabasta. There's a long moment where Sabo doesn't say anything at all, just stares. But then something twists in his face, and he speaks. I didn't get a chance to ask Lucy earlier, Sabo says quietly. Wasn't sure if I should, really. But, he looks up, and can't quite hide the desperation in his eyes. How did he look? Zoro fights to keep his expression neutral. He doesn't think Sabo would appreciate pity. Happy, he replies, thinking of the pride in Ace's voice as he spoke of Whitebeard, of his fondness toward Lucy. He looked happy. The blonde's eyes water a bit, and Zoro pretends not to notice when he turns away to wipe moisture from his face. Good, Sabo breathes. Zoro is glad he doesn't sound as emotional as he seems. I'm glad. I wondered. Right. Because the last time Sabo saw Ace, they were 10. He never got to know the man Ace became. I'll be off then. See you. He lifts his hand in a wave as he walks off. Zoro watches until his top hat melts into the night. He releases a heavy sigh, and turns back to the cabin. The emotional baggage that tends to follow Lucy around is surprisingly complicated, for such a straightforward person. The door opens easily. Zoro is completely unsurprised to see everyone still awake, although mostly bedded down. Usopp looks up at him from his sleeping bag, frank curiosity on his face. That looked awkward as hell, the sniper declares. We weren't sure you were coming back. I told you it would be fine, Robin interjects calmly. Zoro notices that Lucy's been moved to her stomach again. No, Sabo Dono looked understandably upset to discover the close relationship between his sister and a thief like Zoro Dono. Zoro scowls in Kinemon's direction. I thought we were done with the thief thing. What did he want to talk about? Frankie asks. He already sounds sleepy. He gave me a Vivre card for Lucy, he informs them, and he asked us to take care of her. Robin smiles softly. Sounds like Sabo. Zoro walks over to the windowsill, climbing on the ledge again to settle into his watch. Robin's hands turn the lights out, and set the lamps on their respect. Got a good brother, doesn't she? Robin says into the quiet. Zoro presses his forehead to the cool glass of the window. No, he says, placing his palm over the Vivre card. She's got two. Robin laughs in that quiet way she has. Ah, I suppose you're right. Lucy shifts, and her left hand wraps around the bars on the bed frame. Zoro keeps watch until morning. I can walk. Right. No, really, I'm like, so good at walking. Law said you'd be loopy from the meds for a while. Loopy? Who's loopy? Zoro rolls his eyes, and tightens his grip on Lucy's waist as she stumbles over quite literally nothing. You're like 3 miles high and somehow clumsier than usual. Lucy tilts her head back, and stumbles into him. Her face scrunches in concentration. I could be clumsier, she promises. Watch, gum gum. No, Zoro says sternly, just barely managing to pin Lucy's right arm to her side before she lets loose. He's forced to nearly lift her off her feet in his attempt to still her. No, we're not doing that. Lucy, sufficiently pinned against him with her left arm slung across his shoulders, pouts. Zoro rolls his eyes. You're lucky someone was willing to deal with you out in the open. Don't complain. Lucy beams at him. Yeah, but you're always willing to deal with me. You're Zoro. She says his name like there's something to be odd about, and he can't help the flush that rises to his face. He reminds himself that Lucy is currently too medicated to truly understand that words strung together in a row are meant to be a sentence. It's not that hard, he he thinks in response, "It's you. Yeah, well, someone has to." Lucy does not seem to see this as a rebuff. Instead she leans even more heavily into his side, so he's practically dragging her along. Her face presses roughly into his armpit and she jerks away with her nose crinkling. Ew. They still don't have running water and all the rations are either keeping people alive or washing out infected wounds. You don't exactly smell like a peach either. Water is a bit of a problem, actually. The Marines are apparently expecting relief ships to arrive soon, but for now the entire island is subsisting off of the supplies in the Marine fleet. Apparently, it's not nearly enough. Zoro still wants a shower. Lucy nods solemnly. Yeah, okay. Then she looks at him, eyes wide. I still love you though. Even if you smell like Bo. Too medicated to understand what a sentence is. She's high as a kite right now. Yeah, well, you've got that and also you smell a bit like rotting fish, for some reason. Not sure why. Lucy trips again, and Zoro nearly tumbles with her. That'd be snot. He was gross. Torao killed him, or something. Lucy cocks her head. Maybe, 'cause he smelled. Zoro raises an eyebrow. He's about to ask about it, but then Lucy sags against him, her legs suddenly giving out. Oi, you were the one who needed to get out of the house, who wanted to go outside, who nearly caused a mutiny with the amount of trouble you were getting up to with Frankie's innards. That had been kind of gross, to be honest. Frankie has very realistic synthetic blood, which is, apparently, just cola. Zoro doesn't know, Frankie is possibly crazier than the rest of them. They voted on that once, when half of them were drunk. Frankie and Zoro tied for second place which, honesty, is saying something. Lucy, obviously, got first, and the fact that Robin placed last is honestly the most terrifying part of that whole experiment. That was before, Lucy declares imperiously. Then she twists, and her chest thumps into Zoro's, and before he knows it there's a hand on the back of his neck and her mouth is pressed firm and hard against his. Zoro responds, a bit blindsided but willing nonetheless. Two arms loop around his neck and he fumbles a bit as she jumps up, her legs wrapping around his hips. Zoro just bare manages to catch her before she slides straight to the ground. The angle changes, their teeth scrape. Her mouth is warm and her tongue is smooth and restless as they twist together. Lucy pulls back, ending the kiss as quickly as it began. Zoro stares up at her, and he thinks the dilation of her pupils is probably not just from the drugs. Wanted to do that, too, Lucy admits, biting her lip. Zoro can feel his eyes latching on her mouth, and he feels a little helpless to look away. Then Lucy goes limp, like her strings have been cut, and Zoro nearly drops her again as his grip changes. Lucy's head thunks onto his shoulder heavily, like her neck can't bear to hold it up any longer. Tired now, she mumbles into his shirt, stating the obvious. Zoro sighs, frustrated. Clever little shit got him to carry her. Well, to be honest, he doesn't really feel like going back to the house either. He'll go stir crazy if he stays in there much longer. There's a tall linden tree about 50 feet away, an ancient, gnarled thing with sprawling branches and thick leaves, surrounded by a copse of honeysuckle. Zoro shuffles over. Lucy's not being super helpful with this, her whole body kind of limp, but even with his injuries she doesn't weigh anywhere close to what he's capable of lifting. The sun in Dressrosa is hot today, glaring down on the flower field. The wind is cool though, a pleasant balm to the stifling heat. The linden tree offers shade, which is probably a good idea since Lucy isn't supposed to get overheated. He gets to the tree, and coaxes Lucy off of him so he can sit. She whines about it but complies, swaying on her feet sleepily. Zoro huffs a breath out in disbelief. 10 minutes ago she was more or less literally bouncing off the wall. Law hadn't been kidding when he said the drugs would work fast. Zoro, she complains. She makes grabby motions with her hands, like a child whose favorite toy was just snatched away. Geez, you've been clingy, he grouses. But he lifts her into a bridal carry anyway, and sits between two big tree roots with Lucy settled across his lap. It's a little clumsy, but he manages to do it without jostling either of them too much. Zoro unwinds the arm under her knees to pull her torso closer and support her chest a little more. Lucy just presses her face to his neck and curls her ankles to press against his thigh as she twists her fingers in his shirt. Zoro, she hums happily. Zoro finds his hand coming up to stroke her hair, because yeah, holding her like this feels pretty good. It's possible he's feeling clingy too. Then she tenses a little, her breath just a hair too short. You smell like blood. Different than usual. Kinda. Zoro freezes in response, because he never in a million years expected Lucy to think, "You're injured?" Zoro releases a breath slowly, and resumes stroking her hair. "Yeah. I'm fine though." He lays a kiss on her temple, trying to shake off the perceived accusation. "I'm not the one with an infected wound. And I didn't recently have emergency surgery to ensure gangrene didn't set in." The gouge in her hip was worse than previously realized. The infection, from rusty, poorly maintained metal, apparently, was worsened by the effect Gear 4th has on her body. Using it in rapid succession, twice, is apparently a blow to her immune system. If Zoro ever finds out which bastard used a rusty sword on her, he's going to kill the guy. Poison's a cowardly way to kill. That's part of why Zoro takes such fastidious care of his katanas. Lucy frowns into his collarbone. "I scared Zoro," she realizes. She pecks his neck, like a child innocently believing a kiss makes the hurt go away. "Sorry." Zoro lets out a slow breath, and brushes some of the hair from her eyes. "Just be careful." Telling her not to scare him again would be a waste, after all. Lucy hums and settles a little deeper against him. Her slowing breath informs him that she's about to drop off to sleep. Zoro could join her, to be honest. He stayed on watch for most of the night and he had a nap this morning, but he's still tired. "Zero?" Lucy mumbles, slurring her words. "Where are the others?" Zoro draws soothing circles on her back. "They remember, Curly's with them, they'll be fine." Lucy relaxes. "Right, Sanji promised." She falls asleep mid-sentence. Zoro leans his head against the tree. That was what set Lucy off earlier, he remembers. She wanted to get to the rest of the crew immediately, now that everything on Dressrosa was taken care of. They don't have a ship yet, though, and Lucy's still not healed enough to be awake more than a few hours at a time. They're working on the ship, sure, and they'll need to get going sooner rather than later, but no one on the crew is fully functional yet. It'd be best to wait until at least one of them is, just in case they have to fish someone out of the ocean. Zoro's eyes snap open to the sound of creaking wheels. Lucy's still pressed against him, tucked in a ball against his form, but the sun is a little lower in the sky. An hour has maybe passed. The wheels are coming from behind him. He senses two people, a woman and a child, and they're close. Zoro's hand drops to his katana, his left hand splayed between Lucy's shoulder blades, pulling her close. Drawing will be awkward at this angle, with Lucy in his lap, but if he can just get his feet under him. A cart moves around the tree. An old lady with a leathery face and clouded eyes pushes it, and a young boy maybe 10 years old with bright red hair and freckles stops to pick a lavender crocus flower. "I thought I might find you here," the old lady declares. "Oh, and the poor dear's asleep. She must be tired." Deposing an evil dictator will do that to a person, Zoro replies absently. He blinks. "You're the lady from earlier. The one with observation haki." "Alvera, dear, my name's Alvera." She sets the cart down and gestures to the boy. "This is my grandson, Arlo." Zoro squints at the boy. "The toy dog?" The boy makes a face. "Not anymore." Which, fair enough. Zoro supposes he would prefer it if people didn't remember him as a toy dog, if he were in the same situation. "So you both survived, I guess," Zoro says awkwardly. "Around 10% of the Dressrosa population died, so it wasn't a guarantee." "Thanks to you too, and your friends, of course." Zoro shrugs. "I think Usopp took out the toy chick." Actually he knows, because Usopp won't shut up about this incredible shot he made to save Lucy and Law. The story sounds so ludicrous Zoro would think Usopp was exaggerating, but Kinemon and Kanjuro both corroborated the account, and honestly even Zoro's a little impressed with a shot like that. Alvera makes a clicking noise with her tongue. "Well, I have a gift for you both." Her wrinkled hand slides over the edge of the cart, her fingers blindly searching between the stems. The boy, Arlo, comes over immediately, and plucks a bouquet from the cart. He gives her a blinding smile and chirps, "This one, Nan." The old woman places her hand on the boy's head. The gesture looks intimate and familial, like a private reunion taking place in public. The moment passes quickly. Alvera makes a shooing gesture to the boy, and he bounds over to Zoro and Lucy, placing it next to Lucy's leg. Zoro raises an eyebrow as he looks at the gift. Some of the flowers look a little worse for wear. Is that? We found it near the ruins of the Colosseum, Alvera replies. It was sitting on top of the rubble. We decided it should be returned to you. Zoro stares at it, and thinks of the unidentifiable kid. Thanks. Alvera pauses and stares at him, registering the tone in his voice. Zoro stares back, unbothered by the accusative look. We'll be planting yarrow and live oak on the ridge up there, Alvera says, pointing to the mountain Lucy battled Doflamingo on. The spikes and various craters from where Lucy and Doflamingo hurled each other through solid stone give it a strange silhouette. It'll be a memorial. One tree for everyone who died. The old lady taps the side of her nose. Recovering the dead is impossible. Grief is inadequate. The woman shrugs in a helpless sort of way. Remembering them is all we can do. And appreciating gifts along the way is not such a bad thing, she says, nodding to the flowers by Lucy's feet. Zoro nods. He agrees. He just hasn't figured out how to ask one of the Tontatas if the kid was identified or not. The lady seems to get the hint, and changes the subject. You know, that bouquet is a special one. The most curious I've ever made. Zoro raises an eyebrow, and ignores the drool Lucy's leaving on his shoulder. Yeah? Alvera nods. You remember the legend I told you? The one about the girl and her lover? When Zoro nods, she continues. The supposed arrangement of the flowers he left her is passed down among those of us in the craft. It's a trade secret, you might say. Alvera's clouded eyes look sharp for a moment. Imagine my surprise when you and your lovely captain pick it out. A gust of wind bows the flowers in the field to its whims. What? There's a prophecy or 30 that goes with that bouquet, Alvera continues. Most of it's probably hogwash. But they all say it's associated with a new age, with freedom. Zoro rolls his eyes. It's got nothing to do with some flowers. She's going to be Pirate King. She already said all that. Alvera chuckles. Indeed. Well, we'll be off then. Arlo, let's go. We have some marigold to collect. The little boy runs up to the cart, depositing several colorful flowers into their baskets. Yes, Nan. Zoro leans back, watching them leave. Thanks for the flowers, he calls. He doesn't particularly want them, but it was nice of her to drop them off. Then he blinks in realization. Wait, how'd you find us? He hopes it wasn't observation hockey. The blind admiral probably knows exactly where they are, if that's the case. The guy's a master of the skill. Alvera stops the cart and looks over her shoulder. Oh, that's easy, dear. She winks, and it looks a little odd on her wrinkled face. The tree you're sitting under. We call it the hanging tree. It's the one from the legend. And then she walks off, the boy dancing around her, plucking flowers as they went. They look odd. Otherworldly. Zoro considers her parting words with a little consternation. Zoro believes in fate. He's just not big on prophecies. The future is for him to decide, for him to grasp or die. He is determined to be the man who makes it all the way. He believes it will be him, but he knows it could be his fate to fail. He's certain of Lucy's fate, at least. She'll be the Pirate King. He knows because he'd never let her die. Not while he still breathes. We don't need flowers to tell us what we already know, Zoro mutters. Lucy mumbles something in her sleep that sounds a lot like meat. He sighs, looking at her fondly. You're going to make me carry you back, aren't you? Lucy gives no response except to knock the crown of her head against his chin to make herself more comfortable. Zoro's not sure why, but it makes him feel like laughing.